and gentlemen, let's go. We ain't got no time to waste. Let's go. You are now listening to Jason Anderson, and you are in the zone.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
It's funny, before we started taping, Arian was telling me about how the NFL is rigged and how every year he used to get a script.
Yeah.
Day one of training camp that would get dropped off at his locker. Mm-hmm. And you would have to, it was like week 1, you'll do this. Week 2, you're going to have a hamstring injury. Week 3, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Week 4, you're going to get 3 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. And so then you just have to, did you memorize those before the season started, or would you go and rehearse the script before every game?
We're really dedicated to it, so it was more so like that's what practice was about. It was about practicing the script. Like, this is what goes on, and this is what we have to do in order to. Yeah.
And this referee is going to miss this call because they hate you and they love the Colts, that sort of thing.
WWF, so it's like, we know what's going to happen, but you still got to put on a show.
Yeah.
What did you think when you got the script in 2016 that said your career was going to fall off a cliff when you stopped believing in God?
That was 2015.
You're in the zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Arian Foster, just fuel to the fire. Fuel to the fire. He is giving little pellets to the fish. You know how sometimes when you go to a place that's got like a catfish water there, and you can put a quarter in there, and they'll give you a little those little pellets, look like Cocoa Puffs. Throw them into the water.
Don't taste like Cocoa Puffs,
They
by
don't.
the way.
They don't.
False advertising.
Oh, my goodness. We ran out of Cocoa Puffs. My son did not like those things. Like, this
Milk
doesn't
makes
taste
it better, but it's not as good.
Yeah, but they get soggy really quick.
They do.
And so
They
it's
do.
not like the Cocoa Puffs. That's all Arian Foster was doing, was just giving little bits to the little chum to the sharks that are looking for reasons.
He was being a whistleblower, and you're making fun of him.
I think he was
trying to discredit him.
I believe him to be playing a role. I believe him to be just joking and being incredibly dry, sarcastic.
Is that what you think?
Wake up, sheeple.
It's the Illuminati.
What did you think when you got the script in 2016 that your career was about to fall off a cliff when you stopped believing in God?
Well, that was 2015, actually.
2015?
Yes. We would
Just
study
fell
the
out of my
script
chair
the
at
whole
that.
week. We would practice what we were supposed to be doing with the script. It's so great, man. 913-912-4810, the text line to be a part of the show, part of the conversation. 913-912-4810 to join us. We will talk with Cynthia Frelund coming up at 11 o'clock. Myron Medcalf will join us at noon. Our Hoops Insider will hang out with Mick Shaffer coming up at 1 o'clock. We got sad fans today.
Woo! Beards, how sad were they?
They were sad and mad.
I can't imagine what they would be upset about.
Well, they lost.
Do you think they would be upset about just in how they played and that they didn't do a good enough job themselves, that maybe they were missed opportunities, that they were lamenting some missed throws, maybe a couple of interceptions for Joe Burrow, maybe even a dropped interception by Trent McDuffie that could have hurt, maybe a dropped touchdown by Tony that certainly would have made it worse, a phantom holding call on Brian Cook that would have made it worse. Were those the things that they were upset about?
Jason, can you stop reading sad fans?
Sorry. I knew it.
Beards, can I ask you for a quick little teaser trailer? And if you need to shoot us down on this one, that's okay.
Okay.
But I am curious how much of the final product is referee based, because we've talked in the past that like
90%.
eventually nothing but complaining about the referees, it starts to get a little samey, a little bit homogenous.
If there was funny stuff about the referees, I grabbed some of it.
Okay.
There was not much funny stuff about the referees.
This is sort of what I thought it
was
might
more just
towards.
mad stuff
Yes.
about
Okay.
the referees.
All right.
I have since muted that the tweet that I put out the other night with the string of tweets of talking about the different things to try to at least add context to the NFL being rigged. I have since muted that, but I have enjoyed the people that can't figure out the difference between somebody saying the referees are the reason we lost the game versus that's a bad call by the official that can have an impact on the game. Those don't have to be mutually exclusive.
Those are the exact same thing.
The amount of people that replied, what about Chiefs fans and Carl Sheffers? Yeah, it's universally accepted.
Yeah, but it's different because it's us.
Well, no, it's universally that's what they're going for. But it's universally accepted that he sucks. When have people said?
Hold on, Jason. It's universally accepted except for the NFL, who
a good
believes
point.
he's the best head ref in the sport.
That's a good point. And this is his third Super Bowl somehow. But I believe there's a difference between Carl Sheffer's sucks and is not good at his job, and he's the reason the Chiefs lost the game. Now, I do think there are some out there that have done that. I don't disagree. I think that's just as dumb that have said that Carl Sheffers is the reason that a team lost a game, not anything else that happened in that. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that Super Bowl, it's all the officials. You lost by 3 touchdowns. It ain't the officials, it was the offensive line, and it was the defensive line for the Bucs. It wasn't the officials. Joe Burrow had the ball twice in the fourth quarter. It wasn't the officials. You hit the man out of bounds. It wasn't the officials that did that. It's not Carl Sheffers. If the Chiefs lose against the Eagles and there's a big call that can impact the game, we can talk about that call. But not in the context that the NFL is rigged and they wanted to see the Eagles win and they were going against the Chiefs or whatever.
Can you imagine the look on Mitchell Schwartz and Eric Fisher's face when they got the script for the 2020 season?
Did you see Jeff Allen's tweet this morning?
I did not, but I see Seth Kaiser's talking about D Ford getting the script in 2018.
Yes, that's what Jeff Allen had a picture of him just sobbing on the ground crying. He said, my reaction when I saw the script to the championship game of D4 jumping off sides or lining up off sides.
I'm stealing from Max Reaper here. Okay, Andy, we need you to blow a 28-point lead against the Colts.
Oh, man. I'm going to need you to fumble it back to Andrew Luck.
Listen, the Steelers are going to win, but they're going to do it by nothing but field goals. No, that's too stupid.
Hey, Matt Ryan. Good news, bad news, bud. Good news, bad news.
You're going to win the MVP. It's going to be great. You're going to be in the
Super Bowl. You're going to be leading at halftime of a Super Bowl.
3 lead.
Now, I need you to turn to page 4. Turn to page 4.
What if Tom Brady, who's allegedly retired for a second time?
That's right.
We'll see. Don't get distracted.
That's just a promo for next season.
He's going to be a Niner. Yeah, he's going to the NFC Championship game as a Niner.
He'll be a Niner when he retires for the 9th time.
The 49th time. Maybe it's his age. When he turns 49, he's going to unretire and then go, wow.
Comment from Twitch. Okay, Mahomes, time to pop your kneecap out in a meaningless game.
What if Brady is the only guy who's just refused to actually stick to the script, and that's why he's won so many Super Bowls?
No,
They
Bernard
tried to
Pollard.
stop him with the Deflategate.
2007, Bernard Pollard.
But see, believability. You got to knock him down a peg.
That's a good point.
You got to knock him down a peg.
Well,
Same thing with Deflategate.
After the surgery, he did only have one peg for a while.
Whoa.
And then he came back from it, and he was able to go and win a few more Super Bowls, was Tom Brady. So, yeah, I can't imagine the script. I do wonder what it looks like for the Chiefs and Eagles right now as they're going through the script.
Yeah, it's got to be fascinating.
Can we ask?
What do you think Dan Sorensen did to the league office?
He clearly hit on somebody's wife at a Christmas party because he is just getting torched. Sorry, dude. You're gonna have to work on the weekend again. Nope. I'm gonna need you to come in on Thursday night as well and work. I need you to do some more data entry. I was drunk one time.
Actually, Sorensen's the character where they just fail so constantly, but then they have like that one moment every season where something crazy happens.
How's the pretzel
Redeem
beer?
yourself.
How was
It's
that pretzel?
delicious.
Is it
How's your
good?
pretzel?
I like how you took a bite right before you wanted
I
to
did,
jump
and then
right
I
into the
was,
conversation.
Like,
You're like,
weirdly chewing, I got a joke. I
this
gotta
can't.
get it in.
This can't wait. This can't. You know what? Comedy. 90% of it is timing. Your timing is off, and it doesn't matter if I have a.
Josh did something really dumb earlier. He took that entire pretzel that was left from the morning show, and he stuck it back here in the control room with me.
No, that's not
It
smart.
is. There's a giant box back here.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and help you out at the break.
No.
Hey, guys, what do you-
I've locked the
No,
door. No
guys,
one's
about
getting
the
in.
break.
Guys, what do you
Stop.
think-
Turn his mic off.
What
Turn
do
his
you
mic
think
off. Turn
Alex
his mic
Smith?
off.
What do you
Beans,
think
turn
Alex
his mic
Smith
off.
thought when he
Turn
saw
his
the
mic off.
script in Washington?
Turn his mic off. All right, 913-912-4810. We'll talk with Cynthia Frelund at 11 o'clock. She's in Vegas for the Shrine Bowl. She is a field analyst coming up tomorrow night on NFL Network, 7:30 with the Shrine Bowl. Analytics part of it as well. She did it a year ago. So she's going to join us from Vegas. She has a very busy schedule, so she's able to sneak away for about 15 to 20 minutes at 11 o'clock for us. So we appreciate that.
Appreciate the NFL writing that in for us.
Where's our script? What were we supposed to do at 10:16? What was our script? 10:17.
Well, we had start at 10:06, have some pretzel, bleep around a little bit,
That's right.
talk about the NFL being rigged, Beards,
pause for laughter.
Beards takes bite of pretzel, then delivers joke, make fun of Beards, pretend show isn't scripted, and then now here we are at Jason Talks About KU K-State.
90-78 win last night for KU in a, I don't know, revenge game in a game we talked about was 8.5. Was that too many
Eight
points?
8.5 at Fact or Fiction. Felt like a lot. That was fiction.
That was absolutely fiction. So Beards ended up losing yesterday.
It's fiction.
KU wins by 12.
It's fiction.
McCullough was phenomenal last night. 16 points, 13 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, 1 block in 30 minutes while also fouling out. Jalen Wilson was typical Jalen Wilson, 20 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, and some big threes in big moments, clutch shots. I mean, Jalen Wilson walks around the court knowing he's a player of the year candidate.
God, man, it makes me really mad. The one take I wanted to make sure I got off from this game is the one that you just opened with. I think we're both taking it from Jay Billis, but man, it was a good point.
Did he say that last night?
He talked about it at one point. It was just he's moving around more confidently. He is. Because Billis said it, and I watched for a second, just watching him move around, and he does. He moves like an NBA player now.
The way that he was, conducting himself in Manhattan, in Rupp, at Mizzou Arena, just essentially bring it. You understand? I'm a player of the year candidate. I'm a Wooden Award candidate. I'm a Naismith Award candidate. All right, I'm going to be a unanimous All-American. I'm a national championship winning player. I've got a ring on my finger. Okay, I know what I can do. And when you've got that much confidence and you can shoot the ball the way that he does, and he essentially has free range to take shots, and he's not dumb to where he's going to do a fadeaway NBA three-pointer, right? But in transition, you're open, knock it down. And if you miss it, that's okay. Get back on defense and get another shot. But it's Jalen Wilson. Go ahead and take that shot. He's got the leeway to be able to do that, and he plays that way. And yes, KU needs other guys to step up. DeJuan Harris was good last night, and McCullers was really good.
But you said the phrase, I wasn't going to cut you off mid Jalen Wilson talk, and then we just aligned directly. When you said a typical Jalen Wilson performance, I wrote down on the sheet here in quotes, typical Jalen Wilson.
way.
Because that's the fact that you can say that, and it's just, typical Jalen Wilson performance. What was that? 20 points, 8 boards, dominant performance, looking like the most competent player and confident player on the floor at any given time. That's typical now. That is not automatic. That is incredible.
But let's talk about who the best player for KU was last night. Kevin McCullough, who, by the way, I am going to continue Chase Danielsing him with putting the S.
Putting the S on McCullough.
It's difficult, man. I keep throwing the S on there, and as soon as I do, I'm like, well, it's McCullough. But we've already gone past that.
KJ Adam, Kevin McCullers,
Jalen Wilso,
and DeJuan Harris.
And Grady Dice.
I don't know that one would help you any, actually.
Nope, because if it's just DIC, there's no vowel after that C. That's going to be pronounced...
it's like a Bic lighter.
Grady Dick.
Yep, still the same.
Still the same. Joseph Yesuf. So McCullough was awesome last night. He was good. And when he plays like that, KU is going to be tough to beat because you expect Jalen Wilson to do that. DraftKings, over-under, Jalen Wilson, points. I just keep taking the over because it sits at 16.5, 17.5, and I feel like eventually it's going to adjust. Mm-hmm. But if you just simply took the over in every game, 20, 22, 23, 30, 38, 16, 17, 14, 16, this is going back. So since that K-State game or since the Iowa State game when he scored 16, 38, 30, 23, 22, 20. He's hit the over every single time. And just keep riding it. Just keep putting the over on Jalen Wilson total points that night because he's going to come through. He's been that good, and it's a constant to count on, and you need other guys to step up. I want to hear from Bill Self talking about the bench and what they did last night for this KU team in beating K-State. And after the 3-game losing streak, going to Rupp and beating Kentucky, and then returning home and taking care of the Wildcats. Here's Bill Self on how his bench played last night.
Yeah, I think our bench has done better as a whole, but Bobby's done well. I just hope his hammy's not bad because that's a tough one to play with. But he was explosive today. He didn't shoot it from the perimeter, but he got to the cup, and he's a good defender. And it may not seem like much, but with the foul trouble we played through with Grady and Kevin and KJ, if our bench wasn't good, we don't win tonight. And so that was a good thing to see.
And has the game plan been more recently for DeJuan to attack the basket more? Because it seems that he's been getting in the room more often.
Yeah, no question. He's got to look to score. And then we talk about that each and every day. He and KJ both need to look to score.
Yeah, DeJuan Harris was doing that, and this was since the Oklahoma game. It was the most shot attempts for DeJuan Harris inside the arc. Typically, when it's look to score, it's like, okay, if you're open out there, knock down the shot. That's what you got to do. But he drives and attacks and does some things there. But he also has to look to score to finish himself, because guys are going to come over and help out on defense. They're going to draw the defense if you look to finish. If you're just looking to pass, they're going to dare you. Like, okay, we'll go and do that.
That's the book on DeJuan Harris.
Yeah, and he can finish. He can do it. And so when he's doing that and attacking, you know what you're getting from Jalen Wilson. It wasn't the most efficient night from Wilson. It happens. He still got his 20 points. But the bench was really good, stepping up. I don't know the severity of Pettiford. When he left the game after he finished with the layup and then he was jogging down the court and looking at the bench telling him he needed to come out, I thought it was a hamstring. But then when he was walking over there, it looked like it was like a cramp or something. And maybe that's just what his calf looks like all the time. Odds are that's probably the case. But as Bill Self said there, hopefully the hamstring is not serious. So it was, a hamstring, which was the first thing I thought. Then I thought, okay, maybe he's just cramping, and that'd be, good for KU to be able to do that. I want to hear from Jerome Tang a couple of these, because I thought he was good last night after the game was over. Here's Jerome Tang weighing in on the environment there at Allen Fieldhouse that he's very aware of, coaching at Baylor for all those years. Here's Jerome Tang on the environment last night.
First of all, I want to congratulate Coach Self and staff and their team. I thought in the first half especially, and they were locked in, and they made all the hustle plays. And in an environment like this, you don't win a game in the first half, but you can't lose it. And I thought they did what they need to do to get the crowd involved, and they did a better job than we did tonight. So all the credit in the world to them.
I thought that was interesting. In a game like that, you can't win a game with that environment. You can't win a game in the first half, but you can lose it. And being down 12 at halftime, and then you play even in the second half. You turn the ball over 10 times in the first half. You turn it over 3 times in the second half. Yeah, I mean, you've got to be able to go there and compose yourself against a team that talked about after the game, oh, we remember the court storming. Yeah, we remember all that. It's kind of like Chiefs and Bengals, right? You have a little bit extra motivation.
The referees were a little more involved than you'd like them to be.
I mean, here's the thing. How do you expect K-State to win when they're playing 5-on-8?
Exactly.
I mean, K-State was called for 24 fouls last night. 24.
Foul less.
I mean, KU had 23 fouls, but K-State had 24.
Hashtag Big 12 rigged.
Fouls. And KU shoots 35 free throws. Of course, in their home building, they shoot 35 free throws. K-State had 36, but KU shot 35 free throws. The damn officials, it's rigged again. And why did Jerome Tang agree to that script that night? Also, that's interesting how difficult it is to rig a college basketball game, because guys have to make the shots.
Well, look, have you ever watched Angels in the Outfield, Jason?
I have, actually. It's one of my favorite movies. I have it on
Allen Fieldhouse.
Oh, Angels in the Fieldhouse?
Ooh, I like Allen's in the Fieldhouse. And then the sequel is Aliens in the Fieldhouse. That's sort of an Alien versus Predator crossover. It's a whole thing.
Fog in the Fieldhouse.
That's good. Yeah, I like that.
Let's hear from Jerome Tang on the technical last night. They were talking about, Jerome Tang, he wanted that technical. He wanted it. He got it. He's getting his money's worth. Did he want the technical, and what did he say to get it?
Well, I didn't want to get a technical. I think I didn't mind getting the technical, though. I've been in here too many times where I feel like the crowd impacts the referees, and they're human beings, okay? And this is no knock on them, because we shot more free throws than they shot. We made more free throws than they did. But it's like when you shoot the free throws that matter. So I just want them to know that I did not feel like the calls were being even on both ends. Now, I think John gave me the text so that he wanted to let me know, bruh, I will kick you out this game if you keep acting like that. And so he got his point across, and I hope I got a little of my point across.
Coach over here, real quick follow-up, man. You told us before you don't swear much. Did you say a magic word to get that to you?
No, I said no, but I pumped my fists, and they don't like you having, like, if I had done like this and went no, then I wouldn't have got the tech, but I'm not a cross my arm no guy, so.
By the way, pumping your fist and saying no should not be a technical foul. A magic word, whatever. I thought maybe he might have been like, bleep that. Because if you watch a Kentucky game with John Calipari, he probably pumps his fist and does a fake punch at calls that go against his team about 10 times a game.
Yeah.
So don't tell me that you can't say no and pump your fist at the official when that happens, because Cal does it 10 times a game. I did like, though, that when that happened and he's arguing and well, not arguing, but he's trying to get his point across to the officials, and he's being held back by, his coaches. And I thought it was interesting when Tang was like looking at the official saying something, looks at his assistant coach like, I know, yeah. No. Like, no, hold on. I'm getting my money's worth. All right, leave me. I'm not getting kicked out. I'm getting my money's worth. And then he looked at the officials and he said, we're not having it tonight. Mm-hmm. We're not having it tonight. I thought that was great. It's
was great.
You give me a technical. Yeah. We're not having it tonight, okay? Now, KU went on a 16-6 run after that. It wasn't the old his team responds, and they did that, and, it's what happens. They fell behind by 13 the next few minutes after that technical foul. But they had opportunities. They got it within 5 with 5 minutes to go in the first half. They got it within 6 with 15 to go in the second half. They got it. I think that was as close as it got, really, because then it got out to 16 points with 11 minutes to go, and then it got back to 16 with like 7 to go. So
there were 5 minutes left when it was within 5, and then the rest of the game. I always like to go back and look at the little game flow chart on ESPN.com's box score, because it's just kind of an interesting way of seeing what an arm's length looks like on a XY axis.
Yeah,
and to me, what I see from that is the same thing I saw last night, which is, hey, K-State deserves a little bit of credit for being pesky once again in the second half once they got it back within...
They got it within 6 with
6 down there.
15:50 to go.
And then even after that, it seemed like KU was pretty much holding them at arm's length. That's the execution that you expect in Allen Fieldhouse. It's hard to take a lead back there, but I think we saw a pretty good snapshot of where these two teams are in the 2 games combined, one in Manhattan, one in Lawrence. I think we know both of these teams belong in these conversations. I think their ranking numbers by their names are pretty well earned, we could say, for a fact at this point.
And I know they got it back within 9 with 2 minutes to go, but that's too little too late.
It was,
at that point. But you're within 6 with 15:50 to go. You're in the game.
Yep.
And then, you got it back out to 16 points over the next 4 minutes. So that's just how the flow of the game went. And KU, like you said, arm's length the entire time, it felt like. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling. Sean Payton to the Broncos. Tom Brady retiring? We'll talk about those things and a couple of other points on the pressure the Chiefs were able to put on Joe Burrow and the offensive line that, outside of the interceptions or the intentional grounding or the sacks, the other plays that happen specifically because of pressure that also helped impact the game. We'll look at that and a couple of other points as well as we continue rolling along. Cynthia Frelund, 11 o'clock. Myron Medcalf coming up at noon. Mick Shaffer, 1 o'clock. More Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Well, I guess they did in the last, but they took the shot with 15 seconds left. Grady Dick could have pulled it out, but then he decided to go and attack, and he could have stopped attacking. Sorry. Instead, he decided to penetrate, and then he got fouled, and then hits one free throw, and then Keontae Johnson goes back, and then he went to the bucket. God.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Tex says when we were talking about the script that we have that we go through and stay very dedicated to it, just as the NFL does. Tex says there's got to be a filler section of the script where Jason compares somebody to LeBron. Yeah, I mean, that's just ad-libbing. Ad-lib, joking, ha, 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 pause for laughter. Now let's get into Sean Payton, the new Broncos head coach. Have you seen the graphics, the different pictures going around of the what the Broncos have given up for Russell Wilson and Sean Payton, what they have received for Russell Wilson and Sean Payton?
I have.
It's unbelievable.
It's delicious.
They have received Russell Wilson, Sean Payton as the head coach, a 4th-round draft pick in the 2022 draft this last year, and they get a 3rd-rounder in the 2024 draft. So that's really going to put them over the top. They have given up Bradley Chubb.
No, sorry, that was the end of the sentence.
They have given up ... Bradley Chubb, Drew Lock, Shelby Harris, Noah Fant, 2 first-rounders, 3 second-rounders, and a 5th-rounder.
And all the light in their life.
And a crap ton. That's an exact term that they were using.
Yeah.
Crap ton of cap space moving forward. And then, to give all that up, you get Russell Wilson, who looked well past his prime, with a coach that people said, you know what, is it Russell Wilson? Maybe it's Nathaniel Hackett. And the Jets were like, we think it's Russell Wilson. We're going to hire Nathaniel Hackett as our offensive coordinator. Maybe because we want to go get Aaron Rodgers. But we're going to hire the guy that apparently has a good relationship with A-Rod, A-Raj, Aaron. We're going to bring him in here because we actually think Russell Wilson is the guy. And if we don't get Aaron, we'll take Mike White or Zach Wilson over Russ.
It's amazing what they've done here.
Tex says Chubb was at a separate deal, though. No, Chubb brought back the 1st-round draft pick that then they sent to the New Orleans Saints.
That's right. Now look, the back and forth of what the other stuff is.
Yeah.
This more or less, it's a little more, I guess. They gave up Bradley Chubb for Sean Payton.
Yeah.
And if you said, hey,
and a 2nd-rounder,
right, and so if you were to say, hey, in a vacuum, does that trade make sense for a team that needs a head coach? I would say, yeah, it does. I actually think it does.
Yep.
I think it's a little silly that Sean Payton is largely looked at as if Bill Belichick is available right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's where Sean Payton is, but damn good head coach, and the Broncos are not going to go through another experience of, let's try this first-time guy and see if we can figure it out. Like, there is value to that. Somebody, I remembered it was on the Athletic Football Show. It's a podcast I occasionally listen to.
Was it Nate Tice?
So it was either Tice. I think it was actually might have been Robert Mays that mentioned, what would the Chiefs give up for Andy Reid if they would have had to have traded for him in 2013?
Yeah, that's a good point.
In retrospect, I would say every 1st-round pick that wasn't on the team when Patrick Mahomes got drafted, like just 3 or 4 years worth of picks.
Would you have given up the number 1 overall pick at that time, though, if it was like Andy?
I wouldn't have, but I would now.
Yeah,
you know what I
right,
mean?
right.
Like, in retrospect, absolutely that value's there.
Because the question's going to be, how much does Sean Payton make the Broncos better over somebody else you could have hired?
Right.
And is it worth the 1st and 2nd-round player?
Right.
So it's not only the draft picks, it's the 1st-round player, the 2nd-round player that you give up and the coach you would have hired for than Sean Payton.
That's
is
right.
he that much better? And maybe he is. Maybe he is just that much better than everybody else that they could have hired out there. But I promise you, there is a coach out there that is going to take his team to the Super Bowl that is not a head coach right now.
Absolutely.
Eventually. Just like a few years ago, there was a coach out there who was the offensive coordinator for the Chargers. I think he was the OC for the Chargers. And now he's the Eagles head coach.
I wanted to say Indianapolis for Nick Sirianni, but I don't know why.
He was. You're right.
Am I right?
He was with the Chargers, and then he got the OC job with Indy.
Todd Haley coaching tree, by the way.
Absolutely.
Nick Sirianni.
100%. Nick Sirianni met his wife in Kansas City. How about that?
And that's right. He was with the Chargers as offensive quality control, quarterbacks, wide receivers, but he was the OC in Indy before he got the Eagles job. And he wasn't the Eagles' first choice.
No, and they didn't have to give up a first and second round for him. Zach Taylor was a quarterback's coach.
Yep.
And the Bengals hired him, and they went to the Super Bowl. There are coaches out there that, if you find the right one, can get you over the top. They thought Nathaniel Hackett was that guy. They have taken, as an organization, they have tried to skip the line multiple times.
Yep.
They've tried to skip the line at quarterback because they couldn't get it right themselves. They got a Super Bowl out of it with Peyton Manning, but they had an all-world defense. But you still had Peyton Manning, and he had to do what he had to do. They got 2 Super Bowls, actually. 1 Super Bowl championship, 2 Super Bowls that they played in. They tried after Peyton Manning to then do it the way that others have done it and have that rookie quarterback contract. Didn't work. So let's skip the line and get Russell Wilson in here. He's going to be the one that puts us over the top. Didn't work. Well, it's got to be the coach. So let's trade draft picks for the coach because we can't find the guy that is the next star. We can't find the next star quarterback, and we can't find the next star coach. So let's get somebody that already had time in the NFL that's going to cost us more money to get him, draft picks, compensation, all of that, Russell Wilson and Sean Payton, and bring him in and see if those 2 guys can make up for what's going on salary cap, the players you give up and lose, that'd be Shelby Harris and Bradley Chubb, throw in Noah Fant as a tight end, 2 first-rounders, 3 second-rounders, and a 5th-rounder. Out of all of that, could you have found a quarterback and a coach that was good enough? Or found are they better with Justin Fields? I don't know if Justin Fields is a star, but are they better with Justin Fields or Pat Surtain?
They would be better without a quarterback right now. That's not even a joke, right? Like, if they just had no quarterbacks and 0 salary attached to the position, they would be in a better place than they are right now.
Didn't they try that?
They did. They did for a few years, and it was slightly better than this year.
Didn't they try that for one game, though, like 2 years ago?
Oh, yeah, Kendall Hinton out there. Yeah, absolutely.
So they tried it a couple times with possession players. Yeah, they tried a possession player to play quarterback all year. Then they tried it for one game. That was more out of necessity. But I think the Broncos are looking in the mirror and saying this is out of necessity. Do we think that we can find the quarterback? And if you say, well, we're never going to be bad enough to where we're going to be selecting in the top 10, I bet you will, because you are. But even if you believed that, the Chiefs weren't either. And they had Alex Smith. And they still said not good enough. They still said we have to find the guy. So what does it take? Let's identify him, and let's do what it takes to go and get him, coach him, put him in the system, put people around him, accentuate his talents and his strengths, and go win a Super Bowl or 2 or go to 3. And it costs you a first-rounder. I know people, traded 2 first-rounders. They traded 1 first-rounder, okay? Traded the next year's first-rounder. You moved up. You got a first-rounder that year. You got Patrick Mahomes. And they would have traded 4 first-rounders if that's what it took to get Patrick Mahomes.
And we all would be happy with it now.
Absolutely, because as Brett Veach said, if you're right, it doesn't matter the cost. You won't talk about the cost if you get it right.
And if you get it wrong, you're the Broncos, and here you are.
Yes. And they're right now they're $12 million under the cap. So they've got a little bit to work with, right? They don't have any draft picks. This year they have 2/3, a 4th, a 5th, a 6th, and a 7th. But they're bringing in a head coach in Sean Payton who has already had a Hall of Fame quarterback, and he made it to a Super Bowl. He made it to 3 conference championship games, and he was 1-2 in those conference championship games, and he was 1-0 in the Super Bowl. And in 15 seasons, he went to the playoffs 9 times. Did Sean Payton. It wasn't every single year. You're not trading for the greatest coach you've ever seen. And you're not saying, we're actually getting a coach who didn't have a Hall of Fame quarterback, and we're going to put a Hall of Fame quarterback with him. And now, no, he had Drew Brees. He had a guy who was, an MVP player, breaking records for yards, completions under Sean Payton's watch. And maybe he can tap into Russell Wilson. But let's not forget, Sean Payton was also captaining the ship. He was out 1 year last year. He sat out last year. But he was captaining the ship that this offseason is $57.4 million over the salary cap. He was captaining the ship that paid Taysom Hill all that money, that he is $14 million cap hit this year. Think about this. They're $57 million over the cap. Their most expensive quarterback is Jameis Winston at $15.6 million. They're $57 million over the cap without paying a franchise quarterback like $40 or $50 million. They're paying their quarterback $15.6 million, and they got to figure out a way to get down $60 million. Sean Payton was the guy who was doing that. And now you want him to take over a team that has no draft capital to build around and an aging quarterback and say, now go figure it out in the salary cap age without supplementing with cheap first-round draft picks over the next 2 years.
Here's a win-win. Broncos trade for Taysom Hill. Everybody's happy, including Chiefs fans.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
So what we had planned for this segment, we got into Jack Bleep of what we were going to do here.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Cynthia Frelund coming up at 11 o'clock. She is in Vegas and very busy, so we appreciate she's going to carve out a 15 or so minutes to a quick breakdown of Chiefs and Bengals and then start to look ahead to the Eagles game. So there you go. Does she think the NFL's rigged?
Yeah, what was your favorite rigged storyline of the year?
Well, she works for NFL Network, guys.
Oh, she can't say it.
Or she's like...
She's in on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She knows.
Yeah, she can't say
That's
that
why...
it's
The models, Jason. The models are her way of trying to tell us what's going to happen.
My goodness.
It's all a ruse.
But you have to miss on some.
Right, to keep it realistic. You
Yeah.
can't be batting 1,000.
But when she's one of the few that picks the Chiefs, like, she tried to tell you. She was sending you a signal.
Hey, Mayor of Cincinnati, quick thing to run by you.
Jabroni.
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Turned out he went 20 minutes in his opening monologue. Like, come on, that's too long. You don't need to be talking for like 20 minutes in a monologue, guy. I mean, jeez Louise. Let somebody else have the mic a little bit.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. We head up until 2 o'clock. We'll talk with Myron Medcalf, our Hoops Insider, coming up an hour from now. KU K-State last night. We've talked about that in the first hour. Let's get back into some football. Cynthia Frelund, NFL Network analytics expert, our guest here in the Zone. Cynthia, how is Vegas?
You know, it's freezing. It was snowing here the other day. We were outside for practice, standing in this flurry. I mean, it wasn't like it didn't accumulate on the ground, but it was wild. It was wild.
Wow. Well, I'm glad that the Super Bowl is in Vegas next year because, it's like 73 degrees in Phoenix. So I think that'll be more enjoyable.
That'll be better.
Yes, than what's
That'll
going
be way
on
better.
in Vegas. Now, you're in Vegas this week because of the Shrine Bowl coming up tomorrow night at 7:30 Central Time on NFL Network, Field Analyst. So what are you going to be doing for the Shrine Bowl? I know you did it a year ago, but what's the role this year for you?
It's kind of the same, a little bit more. We're adding a little bit more analytics to the broadcast, so you're going to be able to see a little bit more, because look, a lot of the guys in the Shrine Bowl, very interesting. Like, these are guys who make up the meat and potatoes of the team. Actually, Isaiah Pacheco played here last season. They're an important group, maybe not the first-round pick. Maybe sometimes there's a few in the second round or whatever, but potentially we have one first-round pick here. But reality is this is the guys who make up your roster and make you a championship caliber team. Getting these draft picks right is absolutely important. So it's so fun to watch them in their growth and track them from now all the way through till their first season is done.
Cynthia Frelund is our guest. Okay, let's talk about the Chiefs and the Bengals. First of all, well done, holding your ground, standing strong, and picking the Chiefs against all obstacles and oncomers. As you were one of the few that ended up picking the Chiefs at the NFL Network and really across the country with the national analysts. So well done on that. You picked the Chiefs on Wednesday with us. That's what your model said. So first of all, I had a lot of people tweet and text me and say, "Hey, Cynthia picked the Chiefs," so good on her.
Yeah, it was actually. I was actually, to be honest with you, I was quite surprised that it was like I thought it was going to be more of a 50-50 split as opposed to where it ended up being, where it felt like far more people were on the Bengals. But, it kind of was interesting there. That was a wild game to watch for many reasons. But, it was an interesting week of analysis. I think maybe people, after watching the Bengals dismantle the Bills, they thought that potentially that O-line didn't matter as much, but as we know, Chris Jones has the most pressure on the interior of anyone in the entire NFL last season or the regular season. So, it just was an interesting note.
If you were to best describe the NFL, Cynthia, would you describe it as a cartoon anime played by creatures from a third dimension universe 400 light years away, or rigged? How would you describe it? Out of those two choices.
Cartoon, anime, the first one. It was a lot of things.
All right, but it is not rigged. The first one, but not rigged.
Listen,
okay.
Anytime you have that many people doing that many different jobs all at once, you're going to get things that look a little funny, right? Like, just think about it in our world. Like, how many times have you seen people go on TV or radio and, like, the wrong thing plays, and then you're like, well, I guess I'll adapt to this. I wasn't planning on talking about this, but we'll go in this direction because why not, right? So, at the end of the day, I don't know. Like, man, I don't know. All I know is that we're all humans, and I'm a big advocate of putting more, using some of the technology that we have to avoid situations where, at least for me, I never know what a catch is. I'm never going to, I have surrendered the ability to know what a catch is. I don't care. It's, I just listen to what happens. And two, you got to let it go, right? And two, I don't know. So, like, there's a lot of things where I don't know. I don't know.
I know.
But technology can help us.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it's okay to acknowledge that mistakes happen. They're human error. I think it's okay to acknowledge that some calls can impact a game one way or another. And I think it's okay to admit that there were plenty of opportunities for both teams, either the Chiefs to pull away or the Bengals to pull away, the Bengals to win, the Chiefs to win. And ultimately, the officials didn't decide specifically the outcome of the game. But, mistakes can be made. Mistakes are made by the players as well. I think it's okay. Those things are not mutually exclusive. An official made a mistake, therefore they are the entire and sole reason a team won, and they were out to get the team that lost.
Right, exactly. I think that's well put. And at the end of the day, you've been on both sides of these mistakes. Yeah. It sucks when you're on the wrong side, but it's just okay. Well, I mean, I don't even know. You just gotta live with it, right?
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of. Because look, it can go the other way too. At the beginning of that first game, that was certainly not a catch by Devontae Smith, and I give him a lot of credit because Devontae, if you go back and watch, he was actually talking to the sideline of the 49ers, being like, that wasn't a catch, you should throw the flag. It was hilarious. He was telling them, that wasn't a catch, you should throw the flag. And his gamesmanship, that got him the first, they were able to run up to the line of scrimmage and snap the ball, and that basically got them to get away with it, which... It happened.
It's always interesting, the reaction from the players kind of let you know a little bit, because in the two games, the opening drive for both teams, the opening drive for the Eagles, the opening drive for the Chiefs, Devontae Smith doesn't catch the ball. He gets up and runs to the line of scrimmage because it was, as you said, talking to the 49ers, and the Eagles are sprinting down the field because that was fourth down. I mean, that was a turnover if that's ruled an incomplete pass. And then on the Chiefs' first drive, it was a touchdown pass to Kadarius Toney, and it was called incomplete, and he didn't argue. He just sort of walked off the field. Andy Reid ended up challenging, and to me it was I feel like if Toney really believed he caught the football, he would react differently. But he knew it rolled on the ground when he scooped it back up after he fell. You can get a pretty decent indication of, if it's a catch or not by the player that's actually the one, catching the ball or not catching the ball. Or if you see 2 or 3 or 4 defensive players all at the same time look over at the official and wave incomplete, they know as well. The players on the field kind of give you an indication of what the call may be.
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, listen, sometimes a good sell job is worth it. So it's part of the game, right? It's part of the game.
It's Cynthia Frelund, NFL Network analytics expert. All right, let's talk about the game as we go through, and we've broken this thing down 15 different ways since it happened. But from your perspective, how did the Chiefs get it done? How did they find a way to win that one 23-20?
I mean, look, it came down to me, the biggest difference was the effectiveness and efficiency of pressure, because that's a good team and that's a good passing offense, and there's no doubt about it. And I think every Chiefs fan would also acknowledge that. But at the same time, if you're able to get to Joe Burrow just enough, it's almost it's very inconceivable to think that they can keep that high level of completions and deep passes if you're getting pressure like we saw. And in reality, that's where the O-line left them down, just enough for the Chiefs to capitalize.
Yeah, and did you think it would be? I thought the Chiefs had an advantage there, but there were conversations going into that about how the offensive line from the Bengals played against the Bills, and they deserve credit because they played really well against the Bills. In the running game, they were the more physical team. They protected Joe Burrow. But did you think the defensive line, the pressure from Steve Spagnuolo, could be as effective and efficient, as you said, as it was in that game for what felt like all 4 quarters?
Yeah, I mean, I think we went too far. I think at first we all thought, the Bills are going to bring way too much pressure. The Bengals are done for. And then once they were able to sustain the Bills, let's be fair, the Bills didn't really bring a lot of pressure. They didn't challenge that O-line very much, and the run game was just absolutely dominating whatever the Bills were trying to put out there on defense. They just had a very a poor defensive showing in that game. They really did. So I think we swung too far. I had a 2-point. I think it netted out as a 2-point Chiefs win, and it was a 3-point Chiefs win. So it's not like I was suggesting that the Bengals wouldn't have any solutions for the pressure, but that's what Spags does, right? We've seen it a million times. Even Giants fans will acknowledge that they knew that the case, right? Like, like that's what Spags is able to do. He's able to bring really interesting pressures, and you will have. I mean, I was just really impressed with like Trent McDuffie getting there and get his hand on the ball. Like some of the secondary stuff when Joe Burrow was able to pass, that was stuff where I was really impressed.
The models that you have in the simulation and picking which team you think has an advantage from certain elements of the game, can it account for if you take one individual player out here, another individual player out there? Because I bring that up because L'Jarius Sneed was such a big part of what the Chiefs were going to do in that game, and he played 4 snaps. And Willie Gay was a big part of what they want to do in guarding the running backs, defending the running backs out of the backfield. He left with 10 minutes to go in the third quarter. Juju Smith-Schuster left the game. Kadarius Toney left the game early. McCole Hardman left the game early. Those are 5 players, 3 wide receivers that the Chiefs had to overcome, and 2 pretty important defensive pieces that I think Steve Spagnuolo had as part of his game plan. So if you were to take all of those players out, we talked about it, like I would have guessed that the Bengals win by 10 if those guys are missing for a good portion of the game and still guys stepped up. So what would you have guessed, that result would be if you take those 5 guys out of the game?
Well, again, luckily it was at the right time that they got maybe not Snead, but the other ones were able to help for, at least a little bit.
At least a
but
half
at the end
almost,
of the day, so at the end of the day, like it probably would have swung my winner. But the reality is, look, like in every game people go down and that happens. So yes, it does matter piecemeal, but the plan is the plan, and they were able to stick with it. I don't know if overtime would have been a little scary though.
Yeah.
It was like the run game the passing game was just getting so depleted that it was like, okay, this one can be over now. Let's not do overtime. Let's not look for overtime.
Yeah, I mean, I think we also see, like, it's one thing to say the Chiefs don't have Tyreek Hill. Okay, so how does that impact the offense? Well, if you throw in and say, well, they still have Travis Kelce and Juju Smith-Schuster they signed, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling they signed, and McCole Hardman is still an effective player, I think the Chiefs will be just fine. And then another world when you say, okay, well, now what if your receiving core is Kelce at tight end, Marquez Valdez-Scantling is your number 1, and then Sky Moore, Marcus Kemp, Jody Fortson, those are the guys that are going to be running routes for this Chiefs team, and Patrick Mahomes, who's going to be essentially a pocket passer. Like the way they were able to get it done, and maybe it was willing somebody to victory, maybe it was doing a lot of different things, but I thought it was impressive and improbable. What did you see from Patrick Mahomes in that game to come away and help his team win that game and go to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, look, Patrick is he better be the MVP. I look, there's a lot of good quarterbacks that are up for consideration, but Patrick's the MVP. And part of what you saw there was just enough push. It was ironic that like kind of the game stealer was a scramble by him, which is scary. But but at the end of the day, it was a very interesting. What I saw from like all of it was Patrick's ability to execute different things. Now, not to say that we don't see him execute different things all the time, but you saw some fun plays. It's going to sound stupid, but it seemed like they were still able to have fun despite ankle gate. And it was like you saw Travis Kelce with like a lateral play, like hilarious, like all of these things where you're like, oh, they're remembering, like they just want to have fun with this, and they're able to adapt and take what the defense is giving them. Mike Hilton did not play a great game, and Mike Hilton's a good player, but he did not. And you know who took advantage of that? Patrick. So it's what he does, right? Like, I'm not to say I'm not surprised, but it wasn't a surprising performance based on what we've seen this human do time and time again.
Well, it wasn't a surprising performance for you because you said that he was going to have at least 2 touchdowns, and one of those was going to be to Travis Kelce. So,
well, I mean,
can't be surprising.
There weren't a lot of pass catchers left at the end of the day.
Well, that's a good point. But you mentioned you said 2 or more touchdowns and 1 to Kelce. You predicted 1 to McKinnon. That happens. And you said, if he throws another one, Marquez Valdez-Scantling is somebody to consider. Juju Smith-Schuster, certainly somebody to consider. So you got 2 of the 4. I mean, I wouldn't have guessed I wouldn't have put money on a Marquez Valdez-Scantling anytime touchdown. He had 2 all season, and he had 1 in the biggest game. So he certainly stepped up and played that way. And I think one thing that maybe came from that game, Cynthia, and you know this, I think people around here know this, is that Patrick Mahomes isn't just the runaround, Showtime, the street ball. He's very good from the pocket. And I've seen a little reaction, which is, fine, whatever it is, of, after that game going, Patrick had to work from the pocket, and look what he was able to do by staying in the pocket. And maybe nationally people got a better feel or a better appreciation of, when Mahomes is, standing in the pocket, it turns out he's a really good quarterback too.
Turns out also he had the most passing touchdowns on short passes, sub-9 air yard passes this season in the regular season. So it's not altogether surprising that he was able to do something like that in the, utilize those so effectively and efficiently as well.
How much can Cynthia Frelund is our guest NFL Network analytics expert in Vegas, getting ready for the Shrine Bowl tomorrow night on NFL Network at 7:30. Field analyst, some analytics thrown in there as well tomorrow night from Cynthia. How much can, in a game that's 23-20, that comes down to a kick that's made with 3 seconds to go, special teams be a difference maker? It has been a lament all year this year, Cynthia, and the Chiefs looked like the better special teams unit, which would have been a shock. But how much of a difference in a 3-point game can that be?
Oh, I mean, gigantic. One, field position is absolutely key, and preventing good field position is key. But you saw it, sometimes those 2-3 second things determine entire football games.
And Tommy Townsend, I think, punted down to the 5-yard line, punted down to the 6-yard line. The punt return there at the end was pretty crucial as well. What are your thoughts on the Eagles? Let's real quick. We'll do a quick primer, and then certainly we'll break down the game even more next week. But what are your thoughts on the Eagles and what this test for the Chiefs might be?
Well, I told my cab driver, which because I work for the NFL, so I'm not allowed to gamble. I told my cab driver that he should go to one of those buildings that's very shiny and full of beautiful stuff in it and take the Chiefs who are not getting the points right now, because I think that's ridiculous, and that will change before the end of next week in however many days. What do we have, 11 days left, something like that?
Something like that, yeah, who knows? There's a few days left. So you say right now, while the Chiefs are getting points and plus on the money line, go ahead and take them?
I think that I would take them even with some points. I haven't ran the full model yet, but I do know the Chiefs are my winner already. They were my winner prior to the start of the game, so they're still my winner.
All right, we'll see what happens. And we will hopefully see you in Vegas. In Phoenix next week. Enjoy Vegas and the Shrine Bowl coming up tomorrow night. Thank you so much for being able to carve a few minutes out for us today, Cynthia.
You got it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, talk to you next week. Or see you next week.
Yeah, hopefully that's the case. We'll see you next week in Phoenix. That'll be a lot of fun. Cynthia Frelund, NFL Network analytics expert there in Vegas. Very kind of her. She's got a lot of stuff going on in getting ready for the game tomorrow night, but still able to come on with us and talk a little bit about that AFC Championship game. Things she saw, a little bit of a breakdown, and then more in depth next week down in Phoenix, getting ready for the Super Bowl. But how about that? A little quick one there for the Chiefs Eagles. Said she told her cab driver, go ahead and place some money on the Chiefs to win the game. You don't even need to take the points. Take the money line. The Chiefs are her winner, and we'll get more into that next week as to why she sees that and feels that is the case. And she thinks by next week the Chiefs will be the favorite. Interesting. So go ahead and jump on that early line right now. Cynthia Frelund, NFL Network analytics expert. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling. Myron Medcalf will be our guest coming up at noon. Hang out with Mick Shaffer at 1 o'clock. More Zone next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Apropos of absolutely nothing that we were apropos of absolutely nothing we've been talking about in the first hour.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Thank you to Cynthia Frelund, NFL Network analytics expert, and obviously a lot on her plate in Vegas with the Shrine Bowl coming up, so we appreciate her carving a few minutes out for us today to talk about that Chiefs win over the Bengals and a little preview to Chiefs and Eagles. Her quick preview was, I told my cab driver, go put money on the Chiefs. That's what I can tell you. I've got the Chiefs winning. Haven't had the full breakdown yet. That'll come next week, and we'll talk with her at Radio Row next week. But put money on the Chiefs. She thinks they'll be favored next week, so that she thinks they'll be the favorite when they go into that game against the Eagles. We'll find out. They're plus 105 right now. They're getting a 1.5, so she's saying take advantage of that right now. Something you can take advantage of. We bring on Bob Iback, who joins us here, and we've talked about Nyco Sports in the past, nikcosports.com in the past, and all the cool collectibles they have. And it's always fun bringing you on, Bob, because that means there's something else to commemorate and celebrate around here.
It certainly is, Jason. Nice to be back with you again, and congratulations to the Chiefs for winning the AFC title, and probably send some congratulations out to that young man who knocked Mahomes out of bounds there conveniently, and helped them get to the victory. But yeah, we have something that we've done for years and made lots of monies for good causes and charities. It's a special limited edition Super Bowl football that will also commemorate the AFC title for the Chiefs. It's this time it's going to benefit MOSCA, the Metropolitan Organization to Counter Sexual Assault. We've worked with them in the past, a fine organization. That is the charity of choice by the Chiefs this time. And what this is, it's a limited edition full-size football. Only 5,000 of these will ever be produced. Each one will come with a numbered certificate of authenticity for just $119. So it's really a treasure that you'll be able to get and show off to all your Chiefs fans. It's got really some cool information embossed on every one of the panels of the football, which I'll describe here. Then I'll give out the toll-free number how folks can go ahead and order these, because with only 5,000 of these made, and with also Patrick Mahomes' action photograph on one of the panels, he could end up being the MVP this year. This is going to make this thing really extra special. The top panel on the football will have a picture of Patrick and an action photograph, along with some of his career highlights, the Chiefs' championship history, all embossed on that one panel. The panel right below that is kind of a recap of the 2022 season for the Chiefs, listing all their opponents' scores and dates. So, years from now when you go back and you wonder, well, how did they get to the Super Bowl 57? It's all laid out for you right there, and it'll include the postseason scores as well. And then the last panel is really kind of a favorite of mine because it has the official AFC title logo right there and Super Bowl 57 official logo. It really makes it pop out on that panel and makes it very special. So, again, only 5,000 of these will ever be made. We're just kicking it off this week. They're $119 each, and they'll be sent to you by probably the end of April, early May, so you can use it for a Mother's Day or Father's Day gift idea. Here's how you can get them. Toll-free number is 1-800-345-2868. That's 1-800-345-2868. If you can't get through the phone lines, go right to the website, nikcosports.com. You spell it N-I-K-C-O sports.com. Again, that's N-I-K-C-O sports.com. And, Jason, just want to thank you and your great station there and your listeners. We've raised over $3.1 million for charities like the one that we're working with this time with the Chiefs. So a big shout-out to your listeners and your staff there for all your support.
Well, the reason we like working with you is because of that. The portion of the proceeds going to the Metropolitan Organization to Counter Sexual Assault. So that's one reason right there to work with you. But it's also not a cheap product to just let's print all these out, let's get them out there, and let's go and raise some money. Fully embossed football, and it looks spectacular. All three of the panels, to the point to where you almost have to decide which panel am I going to display if I put it in a case here, which maybe I rotate it, just 1 week it's this, the next week I go and turn it, but all three of those panels are pretty awesome. And like I said, fully embossed, and the proceeds go into the great organization. So it is absolutely worth it as a gift or a gift to yourself, man cave piece, all of that to commemorate what was to me, a special season, and I think to a lot of Chiefs fans, a special season to get back to the Super Bowl, knowing how difficult it is, and yet still 3 out of 4.
You're so right, and I was with the Chicago Cubs for 10 years in the 80s with Dallas Green in their front office, and I have my own man cave for many of my baseball years there, and I have a couple of these Chiefs footballs on display down there. But you know what I've done in the past? I'll get 2 of them. And you're so right. I have one side of the one panels displayed, and then right next to it, I have the second one. So when you come down and see that section of my man cave that's devoted to the pro football, you can see both those footballs back to back, and everything is on there.
Yeah, it's awesome. 1-800-345-2868. You can go online at NICOsports.com, NIKCOsports.com, to check all of these out. Bob, you're the man. I really appreciate it. Love working with you, and certainly appreciate the portion of the proceeds going to Metropolitan Organization to counter sexual assault, working with the Chiefs, their choice on that. So that's really cool.
Well, Jason, the feeling is mutual. I always enjoy talking to you on the air, and I think maybe we'll be back with you next week sometime to kind of give your listeners a little update, because, again, we only have 5,000 of these, and we sell out every year. So I do urge people, go to that phone number, go to the website soon, because this is going to be another treasure for a Chiefs fan.
Awesome. Bob, you're the man. Really appreciate it, sir.
You have a good day now.
Absolutely. You too. There's Bob Ibeck. Nico Sports, NIKCOsports.com is the website. 800-345-2868. 800-345-2868. NICOsports.com, NIKCOsports.com, fully embossed, and portion of the proceeds going to the Metropolitan Organization to counter sexual assault. We always appreciate having him on, and the product that is there, individually numbered, only $5,119. And again, some of that's going to help out a local organization. 913-912-4810 is the text line to join us. We appreciate him joining us. I do want to talk a little bit about what Cynthia Frelund had said in the previous segment, talking with her, that my question was just simple: how did the Chiefs get it done? How did they find a way to win? Because I talked about the different players missing. How did they do it? And she said effectiveness and efficiency of pressure. That exactly what she said last week when she was talking about the advantage the Chiefs have defensive line and pressure against a makeshift offensive line for the Bengals. And she said last week it's probably an overreaction to how good the Bengals offensive line was against the Bills. There's no snow. The Bills don't have Von Miller. They weren't good at bringing pressure in that game for some reason, and they were getting gashed in the running game, which sort of kept them off balance. Are they going to run it? Bengals ahead of the chains and leading the game, game script flow, actual script with the NFL. At times, you need that to know that it's rigged, so they needed that script. But there was an overreaction maybe to how good that offensive line was. And she expected the Chiefs to be able to put pressure on the Bengals offensive line and on Joe Burrow. But the effectiveness and efficiency, as she said, is to why the Chiefs were able to pull it out, which is, one of the things that we talked about, that I have no problem saying that the best player on the field was Chris Jones. Patrick Mahomes was phenomenal too, but he was limited. And he was also sort of limited with the people around him. But to dominate in a way that you don't have the football in your hands, whereas Mahomes has the football in his hands and he can dominate and control it, so ultimately MVP. But Chris Jones was just so good. And even if you take out the 2 interceptions, the intentional grounding, the sacks, so 5 of those sacks, so that's 8 plays right there. 5 sacks, 2 interceptions, and intentional grounding. So 8 plays. Even if you take out those 8 plays and you look at the pressures that impacted the game, there were 7 other throws by Joe Burrow that were throwaways or thrown into the ground of a running back's feet, not the intentional grounding. There were 2 other ones where he just threw it at the feet of the running back. And by the way, he didn't get back to the line of scrimmage, which is interesting because I thought you had to get it back to the line of scrimmage. This one wasn't thrown back to the line of scrimmage. Why is it thrown back to the line of scrimmage? Well, because it turns out it's not cookie cutter, idiot. So there were a couple of others that were thrown just at the feet of a running back because the pressure was there quickly. And there was another couple where he just airmailed because he was sort of fading back. The pressure may not have been in his face as much as he thought, but when you've got it there all game, it starts to take its toll. And we can discuss 3rd and 8, Chris Jones, that last play on defense before the Chiefs got it back, and the sack and just beating Adeniji quickly, running right around him, and also the fake chip by Hayden Hurst. Here's an idea. Maybe actually chip or stay in. The refs were the reason that the Bengals did not double team Chris Jones on that 3rd and 8 to make sure he didn't just go right around Akeem Adeniji like he was, a turnstile. No, fake it. Fake that we're going to do and then go out. You got him. Let's just fake the chip because Chris Jones won't be able to recover from that. That was 3rd down and 8. 2nd down and 8, the play right before that, Frank Clark beats Carman, the left tackle, around the edge, and Joe Burrow is feeling the pressure quickly, and he starts to fade to his right, and he throws the ball over to, it was either Irwin or Hurst, and Trent McDuffie was on the coverage, and he just threw it 10 yards over his head. It wasn't close. Now, if Frank Clark isn't there, are his feet set, settles in, hits him, and maybe it's 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2 instead of 3rd and 8? I don't know. But I know on that play, Frank Clark got around the edge, got to Joe Burrow, who was fading to his right and threw the ball, and it was 5-10 yards over the head of the receiver. Incomplete, which then set up the sack. Those things matter, too. There were 7 other plays like that. So, when she talks about the effectiveness and efficiency of the pressure, that was there. It was there in that game against the Bengals. One of the questions is, how much will it be there against the Eagles? You know what I mean? I mean, that's maybe the best offense, like maybe the 2 best offensive lines. Certainly the Eagles are up there. Chiefs are credited with being one of the best offensive lines in the league. I would like one of the best offensive lines in the league to pick up 3rd and 1s. That'd be great. And not literally get 1 yard a couple of times on 3rd and 1s. Just blow that defense back off the ball. That would be great. But Steve Spagnuolo's going to have his work cut out for him. He's going to have to find different ways to get matchups, mismatches, and to get pressure. And that defensive line is going to have to win one-on-ones against better players than they did against the Bengals. There's no getting around that.
I think the single biggest difference between the Bengals and Eagles, for good or bad, is that offensive line. I mean, you have 2 teams with great pass-catching weapons. Little differences here and there. You might prefer the Eagles tight end, but you might prefer the Bengals number 1, number 2 receivers. Maybe you take A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I wouldn't blame you. But you trust both the quarterbacks. They can do different things. You can trust both of the defenses, and they can create pressure. There are no pushovers anywhere. But that offensive line between the Bengals' battered O-line and there are just a couple of clips that I saw from the NFC Championship game after the fact, and watching them back to back to back, it looks like a blocking sled drill sometimes. Yeah. And like I said yesterday, I think Chris Jones versus Jason Kelce could be a feature-length film at some point. I would watch it. It would just be Godzilla versus Kong. It is going to be Pacific Rim 3. Is they make a 3rd one yet? This should be it.
Make it 4 if they have. 3 and 4.
Put Sky Moore on Chris Jones's shoulders and Devontae Smith on Jason Kelce's, and let them duke it out. Whatever it takes, I'm here for it. It would be incredible television. But figuring out, like you said, in addition to creating good matchups and trying to hunt some one-on-ones for Chris Jones, he's got to win one-on-ones against better linemen than he did against the Bengals. I think he'll do that when he gets those opportunities. But they're still going to key in on Jones. He is very clearly still what you start with when you're trying to deal with the Chiefs' defensive line, which means, hey, we're going to need another Mike Dana game. We're going to need another Carlos Dunlap moment. a batted pass, a sack, a tackle for loss, a forced fumble. You're going to need that. You're going to need one of those from Colin Saunders. You're going to need a couple of them from Frank Clark. You're going to need a couple of well-timed blitzes that play off the fact that they're focusing on Chris Jones, and hopefully at least one of those other linemen demand some attention. Making that work against the Eagles is going to be much more difficult than it was against the Bengals, but I do think they're still equipped to be able to do it. The degree of difficulty is just substantially higher.
I think it was Teddy Bruschi yesterday that was, they've now moved on and started talking about matchups with Chiefs and Eagles. I think it was Teddy Bruschi that was talking about, the impact Chris Jones made in that AFC Championship game and how good he is. And they showed a couple of the plays to where he was lined up over the pulling guard, and one of those plays when he was in the backfield and just hugged Joe Mixon to the ground. Just like
good, fundamental Christian-like fun.
That's right, just Christian-like, respectful game.
Respectable and respectful, I think, actually.
Both of his sacks on Joe Burrow, he laid him to the ground.
It was so gentle.
It's just so great. Both of the sacks.
Joe Burrow's been hit harder by fans hugging him. I'm sure of it. Just, oh my God, Joe Burrow!
Engulfed him and slowly laid him to the ground.
That's right.
But they showed the play in which there was the pulling guard for the Bengals, and Chris Jones just shoots right through there and then hugs Joe Mixon. And Teddy Bruschi was talking about, does Steve Spagnuolo line Chris Jones up right over Jason Kelce? Like, you can move him in different places.
So wild.
But do you put him right over Jason Kelce? He's like, because one, Kelce is a smaller player, but two, he's their main pull player. He's so athletic. He's their main guy that they use to pull. And if you put Chris Jones right over him, do you take a part of their game away because how good Chris Jones and how fast and big he is to shoot that hole, to shoot that gap to where the guard may not be able to get there and get leverage in time. So now you're either busting up the play, or maybe you're forcing a holding penalty, or you're just simply making the Eagles adjust to something that they do really well, which is get their center, which is a great advantage to have your center be able to get out and pull with how athletic he is. I thought it was a great point by Teddy Bruschi in an early sort of cat and mouse, chess, X's and O's type. What's Steve Spagnuolo going to do against the Eagles offense? What are the Eagles going to do against Chris Jones and things like that? But, if he's that good at shooting the gaps on these players that are pulling, do you put him right over the center and right over Jason Kelce, or shade him one way or another and he's closer to being, that nose tackle type player instead of that three technique, or even a guy that can go out and play defensive end?
So this guy is about half a foot shorter than Chris Jones, literally listed at 6 inches shorter than Chris Jones. But that's not an issue for defensive linemen. It's all about leverage and everything. But with that logic in mind, I wonder if we're just going to see some Colin Saunders nose sort of action.
Yeah.
Because he is way too quick to be a nose.
Quick.
Like, he does not make sense physically in the middle of a defensive line. He's a tremendous athlete. And I wonder if he could also shoot some of those gaps and then end up in an advantageous position before the Eagles are able to kind of seal that hole back off. Or if you say, hey, we're giving you this, we're going to let you pursue because the play's running away from here, and that's where the pulling, in this case, center would be going anyway. Colin Saunders is quick enough to go chase down a running back if they have to hesitate at all, which very frequently you want to be patient. You want to let the block develop. If you're the linebacker, you need Jason Kelce to snap the football, get out of his block and around. That's a beat because Kelsey's incredible at it. Obviously, he's relying on the guards to get some depth too. But to be able to make all of that happen in one motion while Colin Saunders is kind of trying to shoot that gap and maybe get to the running back before all of that operation can be completed. I wonder if we could see him do some of that, and then you can still put Chris Jones in different spots. I don't know. It's just that I hadn't really thought about the pulling lineman stuff as much, and I wonder if they could have a couple solutions to that problem to keep them guessing.
I will offer as a counter and a devil's advocate to that from Teddy Bruschi, in that, yes, Chris Jones is as dominant as he is, big and fast, and so that's a different player to use. But I'm going to guess other defensive coordinators that said, hey, what if we put our bigger guy or a faster guy right over Jason Kelce and try to limit what they want to do in pulling and things like that? I don't think Spags is sitting there like with the light bulb going off going, wait a minute.
Why has nobody thought of this yet?
The phone. Difference being, it's like, hey, put this guy over the tackle and see what he can do. Right, but that guy is, Michael Dana, who was perfectly fine. Or it's Von Miller. Okay, well, you can do some more things if Von Miller's out there than maybe with Michael Dana. Okay, we'll put this guy over Jason Kelsey, see what we can do. Okay, now put Chris Jones there.
Right.
And see what the difference is.
It's a diverse group, though. Like that line is switchable enough where we saw both. I think it was where Dunlap was out on the 3rd and 4, the sack that Chris Jones had basically ice it, where Dunlap was on the inside. Colin Saunders works inside all the time.
Yeah.
So there is some flexibility there. Just being more multiple that way lets them show the Eagles front some different things. Or maybe they would have a couple things that other teams won't be able to show them. Obviously, Chris Jones is the best of those options because nobody else has a Chris Jones. But I have to imagine Spags is going to use these 2 weeks with plenty. A lot of guys have media obligations throughout the week. I bet Spags is going to spend quite a bit of time in a dark room with some. I have him in a lab coat with some beakers, just sort of some dry ice smoke around him, and then a Wii remote and the TV just grinding tape.
And it will come by him honestly if he says good morning or is it afternoon. I don't know.
I literally don't know. I've been in the dock but awake for 7 straight days.
Not sure.
Just being sustained on my wife's meatballs and tape.
That's right. And also another tie-in in this, in Steve Spagnuolo being a former Eagles coach.
It's perfect.
And it turns out Andy Reid coached there too.
What?
Turns out Rick Burkholder was his trainer there in Philly.
I just think it's crazy that the Chiefs tight end and the Chiefs and the Eagles center have the same last name. Like, what are the odds of that?
No. Well, they're spelled the same. One's pronounced Kelsey, one's pronounced Kels.
I knew there was a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And that whole Nick Sirianni with the Chiefs thing. There's so much of it.
Todd Haley coaching tree.
Do you think
Say it again.
Do you think Nick Sirianni holds a grudge against Andy Reid? It's not only the Super Bowl, but this is gonna be personal for him. And do you think Nick Sirianni's in-laws are split allegiance with them being from the area, and now he's the Eagles coach? Will they root for the Eagles or the Chiefs?
I think the script has a mom rooting for the Eagles, dad rooting for the Chiefs, I think is what I saw. But that was tentative still. I haven't gotten the NFL's official version yet.
Okay. We'll have to see.
They need to get with that one woman who's a super fan of both the Kelsey guy and the Kels guy. I don't know, because her name also looks like it's spelled the same.
It's different though.
I really haven't been able to follow it.
Oddly enough, she's got 2 different last names in her life.
That's very weird.
She just changed it somewhere along the line. She's like, I just want to change my name. She's such a fan of these two. She changed her name to match their last name.
Wow, that's kind of creepy. They should those guys should get a restraining order or something.
She was talking about trying to take a private jet between both games on Sunday.
See both of them? That's crazy. They should do a podcast together.
She's going to make like a Super Bowl jersey of both of them or something like that and be at the game. They need to watch their back because she's going to be there, probably trying to be around them, very close to them the whole week.
Chief security, keep an eye on that crazy woman in the split Kelsey jersey.
That's right. Who's going by, air quotes, Kelsey.
That's her first name, actually. It's Kelsey.
We'll take a BREAK. More Zone next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
right on the verge of nailing it.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I will talk with Myron Medcalf, College Hoops Insider, coming up at noon. He is presented by Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City. Talk with him about the game last night. Now a couple matchups coming up this weekend is KU taking on Iowa State and Kansas State, now with 3 losses in the Big 12, taking on the team that is in first place in the Big 12 with Texas with only 2 losses. So an opportunity to get right back for K-State. And KU heading to Ames and Hilton Magic.
Have you seen arguably the biggest news of the day?
Tom Brady's retired.
Bigger than that, Jason.
Oh.
After a 4-year hiatus, the Arena Football League has announced it's relaunching under a new ownership group, returning to the field in 2024.
I've always said the ownership was the reason it didn't stay.
I want Arena Football! I've not found anything yet on where these teams are going to be, but if we can make that happen, I'd be down.
You should call it Brigade.
That would never happen.
How about The Rock, while hosting the XFL symposium type deal with all the coaches and players there, still taking time out to give a shout out to Travis Kelce? I mean, busy man.
He's no jabroni.
Hey everybody, this is Nate.
You're in the zone.
Food here? Yeah, we'll keep asking questions. Okay, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Jesse.
With Jason Anderson
I was just curious. Do you
I'm sorry, the food's here.
on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson, Josh Brisco, and Beards. We head up until 2 o'clock. A couple more hours to go. We'll hang out with Mick Shaffer in the 1 o'clock hour. And, of course, we have Sad Fans today. We got Sad Fans coming up in the 1 o'clock hour as Beards promises us one of the best. And that is the expectation. We are joined now by our College Hoops Insider from ESPN, presented by the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City. Myron Medcalf joining us here in the zone. Myron, how are you, sir?
Good, man. How you doing?
I am doing just fine. Let's start off. You know what? Let's just start off with this. I know you're the Hoops Insider, but we had you on last week, and you said Eagles and Chiefs. So just a little kudos, a little pat on the back for you as we start.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I mean, I think Mahomes looked better than I thought he would with the ankle, although you can see it kind of wearing on him late in the game before that miraculous run. Also, I don't get the controversy about the call. Like, that's such a weird thing to me. Clearly it hit. Like, clearly a flag. It was weird that there were some people who thought, like, that was the wrong call. Yeah. And then Jalen Hurts and the Eagles are just such a balanced group, man. I think this will be a really good Super Bowl, and 2 weeks for Mahomes to rest, 2 weeks for Hurts to prep for the biggest moment of his career. So I think it's going to be fun, man.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it, certainly, and we'll be down in Phoenix starting next Tuesday doing our show. Myron Medcalf, our guest. All right, KU K-State last night. We were talking yesterday, Myron, on the show because the line was like 8. It got up to 8.5, and we're like, man, it feels like that's too many points. This game feels closer, and it almost felt like Vegas was like, no, it's too many points. Put money on K-State. It's way too many points, guys. Go play some money on the Wildcats. And then, KU just felt like they had control of that game. Not really a surprise in that because of how good they are at Allen Fieldhouse and the sort of revenge factor from the previous game. But what did you see? What did you make and take away from the 12-point victory last night for KU?
I mean, this is like the best league in America, and I think by far, right? And the Big 12 has been in that spot many times, but I think this year they're way ahead of everybody. Like, if you look at the worst team in every Power 5 league or major league, right? Big East, I think Georgetown is, 221 or something like that on Ken Powell. SEC, South Carolina is like 255. Big 10, Minnesota, 194. Pac-12, Cal, I think it's 257th. And I think in the ACC, I'm trying to think who's the bottom team in that league. But Louisville is in the 200s too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, you have some really, really easy games no matter where you play the bottom tier in those leagues. West Virginia is the only Texas Tech is the only non-top 40 team in the Big 12 on Ken Palm. And they're 62nd. And they just had the greatest comeback of all time in a second half in Big 12 history. I said all that to say you're not going to get many wins on the road in a league like this where you have this kind of competition. And with that crowd, where you got the overflow, they had to move students to watch on TV because, it was too packed. I thought they did the opposite of what happened in Manhattan, and they just kind of came out and punched them in the mouth. And I don't think Kansas State was ready for that. At the same time, I think that's going to happen to most teams, no matter who you face on the road in this league. But it felt like Kansas was ready to send a message that, hey, we're the better team. They got good production from the bench. They outscored K-State 19-9. And Bill Self talked about that. Jalen Wilson, what he was able to do. Like, it never felt like it was a close game and that Kansas State ever really threatened them.
Yeah, the Drum Tank said something interesting last night, and, we use the adage in baseball where we're like, well, you can't win a division in April, but you can lose one. And he said, you can't win a game like that on the road in Allen Fieldhouse in the first half, but you can lose one. and talking about, they turned it over 10 times in the first half. They were down by 12. They turned it over 3 times in the second half. They played even with KU, 41 points apiece for the two teams. And he's right. And in that environment, like, it's one thing to have a lead, like come out and try to punch KU in the mouth and then try to hold on to that lead in Allen Fieldhouse. It's another thing to be down by double digits and try to work your way back in that environment. And even if you get back in that environment, can you then finish the job? I mean, they got within 5 late in the first half. Then they were down 16 in the second half and got it within 9.
6 with 9.
Yeah, well, that's right. They were down 14 and got it within 6, and then they fell down. Their largest margin of deficit was 16 and got it back to 9. But they got it within 6 with 15:50 to play. But again, you're still trying to then outscore KU by 7 points the last 15 minutes there in Allen Fieldhouse, like you said, when it was that packed and a highly anticipated game to where even Kelsey was there in the front row.
Yeah, and everybody hyped up. I mean, a similar thing happened in Manhattan.
Yeah, true.
Kansas had to climb out of the hole.
Mm-hmm.
They get into overtime, and they're exhausted. There's foul trouble. Keontae Johnson and Marquise Noel, they weren't efficient. That weird foul that they assessed to Keontae, was weird in the beginning of the game, but their stars were struggling. Now, it felt like everybody, but DeJuan Harris was struggling yesterday. Not many efficient games, although Jalen Wilson goes 4 for 9 from 3. And I think in that kind of a battle, man, a 10-point gap is like a 25-point gap just because no one's really shooting the lights out. And I thought that was just a great environment. And it just showed why it's such a hard building to get a win in there. And I think it also was, to beat Kentucky and to beat K-State after losing 3 in a row to 3 really good teams, that's important, and I don't think that's something that should be overlooked, the ability to get back into a rhythm playing 2 really good opponents in tough matchups.
Is this the Kevin McCullough that, Kansas will start to get more on a consistent basis? It's now 3 games in a row. He's had a double-double with 10 points, 10 rebounds. He's got 10 assists in the last 3 games. He was 16 and 13 last night, points and rebounds. I know that the answer is going to be they need him to be that if they're going to make a deep run in the tournament. But do you think they can get that from a guy who, is, a senior, 4th-year senior? I don't think he had a red shirt when he was at Texas Tech. So a 4th-year player, an older guy. Can they get this guy more consistently? That's just you're a basketball player. You don't need to be a scorer. You're not a rebounder or a guy that's going to dish the ball. Just go and be a basketball player. And at the end of the day, you've got, 12, 10, and 3.
Yeah, I mean, it better be, and I know everyone's saying the same thing, but, my problem with Kevin was, it wasn't supposed to take until late January, early February to get this, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
This is a veteran. He played at a high-quality program. They brought him to Media Day. You know who you bring to Media Day? Your stars, right? So the idea was, no, you're coming in to add, Grady's young, KJ's young, Jalen obviously is a star, but, you're coming in to be the guy who kind of allows everybody else to develop around you and stabilize this team. So it shouldn't take this long. I do think, however, we forget what happens to especially veterans in this league when you go to a program like Kansas and you got to figure out who you are there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Kevin had a problem figuring out who he was. I think it's taken some time to figure out who he is at Kansas. And that's a whole different deal when you're playing with that kind of talent on the floor. When you're playing a team that, gives out rings at the start of the season because you just won a national championship. I think that's the challenge that maybe Kevin couldn't necessarily anticipate how he would endure that. But now he finally looks comfortable. Remember how tight he looked in, November and December? He looked like a dude who was a freshman in some games. He just didn't know kind of where to go, what to do, and you could just see it on his face, how tight he was, how unsure he was. He'd defer in moments where you're like, dude, you're not a freshman. You're coming in as a vet. You don't defer in some of these moments. Go get it. And I feel like now he's kind of all right, I know why I'm here and I know who I am with this team. Let's get the job done. Because I think they can win a national championship if he's your third guy, right? Like, I think he has to be to help this team cut down the nets again.
It's a little bit like, I mean, they're different players, but, Remy Martin was a fifth-year senior last year and started off scoring, at a pretty decent clip at the beginning of the season. And then that lull in the middle of, there was the injury, but it was also like, where do you fit? How do you sort of mesh with everybody? And then postseason time, he just turned out to be a phenomenal basketball player that figured out what his role was and played it perfectly and hit some big shots in the second half against North Carolina to help him win a national championship. That even for a senior or a fifth-year senior joining a new team, takes a little bit of time to figure everything else out. And I do wonder, Myron, as we look at like K-State adding a bunch of new players together, Missouri adding a bunch of new players together, KU, a lot of the same players, integrating, pieces here and there. I don't know if it's easier, more difficult, but just different when you're adding one or two pieces as opposed to, all right, let's figure out how all 6 or 7 of us fit together as we're all coming together in this first time, new head coach and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think both formulas can present challenges because you're getting guys who are like, wow, maybe never imagined I'd have a chance to play at a place like Kansas, right? And now here you are. I remember with Remy Martin going into that season, I asked Bill Self going into the year, I was like, how was he doing in practice? And he was like, Remy's going 100 miles an hour, and he can't slow down. And, like, that was his challenge. Like we're trying to get him to play a steady game, and he's struggling with it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think Kevin was going too slow. Like, Kevin almost would have these moments where you're like, be assertive and deliberate, man, and do what you're capable of doing. And now he looks more comfortable. Now he looks like he believes, he's capable of being that piece for this team. But I think we make too many assumptions when a K-State happens or an Iowa State happens, or a Baylor a couple years ago happens. But, those are the best of the best. There are a whole bunch of teams that have some transfers who are in the middle of February now going, what are we going to do? It's not working. So it's like no guarantee that all of a sudden everybody's going to adjust properly and just figure it out.
Yeah. Myron Medcalf is our guest from ESPN, our Hoops Insider, presented by Boys and Girls Club of Greater Kansas City. KU now heads to Ames. K-State gets ready to take on Texas. Now in first place in the Big 12 is Texas, but opportunity for K-State there. Iowa State, 2-4 in their last 6 games. Now all 4 of those are on the road, but also blowing a 26-point lead. Did Iowa State. So what are you seeing from the Cyclones right now? And as they get ready for, Kansas, how do they erase a, 17-point loss to Mizzou and a 23, 24-point lead that was blown against Texas Tech to get ready for KU at home?
I mean, I did a bunch of Iowa State games for TV earlier in the year. They beat North Carolina and then they lost to UConn. I think Iowa State is one of those teams where when they get out on you and they jump on you early, they'll stay on you, and they'll keep applying the pressure. They haven't been as good in adversity, especially recently, right? They're not the kind of team, I think, that will snatch the momentum back from you. They'll hold it. They'll maintain it. Obviously, it took the greatest comeback in Big 12 history, literally the greatest second-half comeback in the history of the Big 12 and Big 8. That's what Texas Tech did to get that win. But they've got to prove that they can fight through those moments, and they haven't done that enough this season. They've been really good when they've been able to get out in front and just kind of hold on to a lead, maintain that distance. They've had more trouble when they're in a real fight. And they're going to be in a real fight Saturday again, and I think we're going to learn a lot about kind of who they are. We talked about transfers and roles. The great thing about having all these pieces they brought in, Jaron Holmes, and some of the other pieces they've added, is you can see just the immediate talent pool that TJ Otzelberger has now, right? The challenge, though, that you're seeing with that team is, Jason, who's the man when Texas Tech is making that run? Who's the dude?
I mean, it should be
Who's the
Cowshore,
guy?
right? I mean, is he the guy you go to? I mean, I know Caleb Grill was taking some shots. I don't know if that's really who you want to be the guy trying to, take a deep three.
Yeah. Holmes thought he was too, though.
Yeah,
like
that's
my
right.
point
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
my point is, when that happens to Kansas, you know who the dude is,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like there's no debate about that. You know exactly who you're going to. You're going to Jalen Wilson. I don't think Iowa State has that yet, because they were sort of scrambling to figure out who's going to save us from what could happen right here in this great comeback. And they haven't established that hierarchy, I think, in those moments of adversity, and I think that's where they're challenged. But when they get out in front on you, they'll hold it, Like Kansas has to have another fast start, I think, to get out of there with a win.
Yeah. Visiting with Myron Medcalf from ESPN, our Hoops Insider, presented by Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City. Mizzou is heading to LSU. That game coming up tonight, and Mizzou with a back-to-back win and 3 of 4. The loss is the 20-point drubbing at the hands of Alabama, but they didn't lose by 60, so that's good since Alabama put it on Vandy last night. Was it 57 ended up being the final score?
It was 101 to 44, I think, whatever that number is.
67.
Yeah,
I mean,
my goodness.
That's
bad.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Stackhouse. Maybe that's just I don't know what.
He's ready to fight somebody, man. That dude is ready to fight people. Like he's getting close, man. He's getting close.
Call people out of the stands maybe to put on a jersey and see what they can do in a game like that. But they get ready for LSU tonight, and it's an interesting matchup because Matt McMahon is somebody who was high on the list of coaches that I wanted Missouri to go and hire. And LSU hires him, and he brings a lot of his players from Murray State, and Mizzou goes and gets Dennis Gates. What are you seeing from LSU, a team that's 12-9 now, but they're on an 8-game losing streak, and they're 1-7 in the SEC, and Missouri heading there to face off against a team that's 128 in the KenPom rating. So what's going on at LSU with Matt McMahon? Not even really juxtaposing with what we know Dennis Gates is doing at Mizzou. Just what are you seeing there in Baton Rouge?
I was just talking to Matt McMahon's agent, yesterday about him. I mean, obviously, to your point, like he was high on a lot of lists, last summer, considering what he'd done at his last stop. I mean, it's a different level, man. Like it's just a whole different level, and I think there were a lot of moments for that LSU team in November and December, where they won some close games, escaped UT Arlington, escaped Wake Forest, got by Arkansas, right? And now you're going, wait, we're on this amazing win streak, and then all of a sudden you lose that close one at Kentucky early. And then you get thumped by A&M, and like to me, they got to stop the bleeding because they're getting bullied at this point. Like it's not even like they're losing close games and they're in a good fight. I mean, A&M destroyed them, Florida beat them, Alabama beat them by 40, Auburn beat them, by almost 20, Tennessee 20. So like, this is an important game for. Are they going to avoid one of these stretches where, like, you end up winning 2 or 3 games in your league? But it's possible based on kind of what's happening now. I think the biggest change for a new coach is can you get guys to play defense consistently? And they've had trouble there, and they just don't have a real offensive catalyst as well. I mean, KJ Williams was an incredible player at Murray State, still playing some good ball, but this is not that league. This is a whole different deal for some of those guys who came over with him.
Yeah, that was the one thing. Like he had to replace a good portion of his roster, and he did it with a good number of Murray State players. And we were looking at how Dennis Gates was building it. It's like, okay, you got some guys from Cleveland State, you got some guys from that conference. Like, are you going to be able to compete and put those things together? And he definitely has. And the one thing that's starting to happen with this Missouri squad is, I don't know how many teams late in the season can add a 6'10", 220-pound senior, or junior, I should say, center that can run up and down the floor and hit threes and add in late January an Isaiah Mosley that scored 20 points per game, and those guys weren't playing a month ago. They were watching basketball, they were watching those things, and now they're out on the floor playing and being a part of a team that's already playing well. So I think it's an interesting dynamic of sort of that development and allowing players to come along at their pace. I think Dennis Gates talked about that with Mo Diarra. It was like, sometimes the JUCO guys, foreign players, like, takes him a little bit to get there. He's like, but before that A&M game, he was the best player on our team for like 3 or 4 days in a row at practice. Like, that's how good he is. He's just got to figure it out. I think there's so many encouraging things about this Missouri squad that Dennis Gates has been able to put together that now you throw in a couple of players that just, not many teams can make those trades in the middle of trading deadline. They get 6'10", 220, and Isaiah Mosley.
It helps. I mean, you talk to Dennis Gates, and one of the things about, coming over, a lot of coaches in his position sometimes think with their heart, right? So you want to bring a bunch of your guys with you.
Mm-hmm.
You want to give them the chance to play at the highest level. Dennis Gates didn't do that. I mean, he assessed kind of who he thought could play at that level. It was an intellectual decision, not a emotional one. And now you add a Mosley, like you mentioned, 3-1 since he's been out there.
Mm-hmm.
You beat a very good Iowa State team. You beat a Mississippi team that you had to beat, and you beat Arkansas. You got blown out by Alabama, but Alabama, to me, is, no matter what happened over the weekend, it's still one of the 2 or 3 best teams in America, and it might have the highest ceiling in America too. But I think Missouri is just done it the right way. I think Gates is the right coach. It's hard to find the right guy. Kobe Brown, like that, convincing him that, hey, this is the place for you, and I'm the right coach for you. I think they did something in the last couple of weeks where you and I know if it goes the other way and you lose 5, 6 in a row, you probably kiss the tournament goodbye or put yourself in a situation where you got to do something miraculous in February.
Mm-hmm.
But, they've really salvaged that, and I think they look good going into this LSU game.
It's an interesting point about assessing who can play at the level and who can't, because Golston has clearly proven he can play at this level, and he's a guy that didn't even play for Cleveland State. He played against Dennis Gates at Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
And Demoy Hodge has clearly proven he could play he leads the SEC in steals, and he's the best shooter on Missouri, shooting 40%. He's been hot the last couple of games. Like, it's an interesting one assessing who can play at the next level, while knowing I'd love to bring all these guys, but I got to go and win some basketball, and I can only take a couple of you. I can only take Demoy. I can take you, Trey Gomillion, because you can be a defender and a leader as a senior. And I've watched this Golston play, and that guy can take anybody one-on-one, and he can hit some big shots. I'll take him. Other than that, I need to figure it out everywhere else where I'm going to put this team together.
That's bro. Yeah. I mean, every player is texting a coach like that on the day. Every single player is saying, "Coach, take me with you."
Mm-hmm.
And that's got to be tough, man. Like, you can change a player's life, giving him a chance to fulfill his dream of playing at that level, but to your point, can you win?
Yeah.
I think Dennis Gates did a really good job of assessing guys who could play at a high level, and his experience at Florida State, playing in that league and knowing how to assess talent that could compete really helped him, I think, in making some of those judgment calls.
That's an interesting point. Myron Medcalf, our guest here, our College Hoops Insider, presented by Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City. Myron, you're the man. Really appreciate the time as always, sir. We will we'll talk next week when we'll be down in Phoenix, but we'll still talk to you, get some college hoops thoughts and a Super Bowl prediction, of course, next week leading into that game. But appreciate the time today, as always, man. Enjoy the basketball. We'll talk next week.
Sounds good, man.
Thanks for having me. Yep, absolutely. There's Myron Medcalf. Again, he's presented each and every week by Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City. Myron Medcalf, College Hoops Insider and NFL prognosticator. Eagles and Chiefs nailed it. Went on a limb, picking the 2 home teams. But we talked about it last week. I mean, Mahomes wasn't very far off with his 5% of people were picking him. It was a lot like that. But he had, I wrote down last week, he said if Mahomes is 75%, the Chiefs win. So that was his thought last week. Also his thought of, KU going to Iowa State, K-State, Texas, a big one this weekend, and Mizzou tonight at LSU. And I think the storyline there is Matt McMahon was on the top of the list of a lot of schools, and the story that, gosh, what game was it they were talking about with Kansas State when, they were going through essentially like the process of finding Jerome Tang, and Marquise Noel saying, hey, Matt McMahon's a coach I would love to have. They said, well, we're actually looking at Jerome Tang. Marcus Noel was like, get him, and I'll come back. Okay, there you go. But Matt McMahon was a guy that, a player on a different team there at K-State is saying, go get this guy. And a lot of people around here, myself included, love Matt McMahon to coach at Missouri. And maybe he'll still be a phenomenal coach. It's just year number 1. He's still 12-9. It's just, they're on an 8-game losing streak. And they have been getting beat down by these teams. They lost by, so here's the string of losses. They lost by 3 to Kentucky. Then they lost by 13, 11, 40, 21, 21, and 20. And then they lost by 8 at home to Texas Tech. Texas Tech's a good team. They were also down by 23 to Iowa State. And that was Texas Tech against Iowa State at home, down by that. LSU lost to Texas Tech at home. Texas Tech was on the road. There's some issues going on with LSU right now, and that's also the importance of tonight's game for Mizzou. Go and win. Just go take care of business. Do what you're supposed to do, and then get ready for Mississippi State on Saturday. Return home for South Carolina, and then the schedule gets difficult again. Then you got Tennessee and Auburn, and another game against A&M in which you lost by almost 20 on the road. So just take care of business tonight and these next couple games, and then see where you're at and let the chips fall where they may moving forward at that point. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue more Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
You're dumb, but you're not stupid.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Thank you to Myron Medcalf from ESPN College Hoops Insider. We'll hang out with Mick Shaffer coming up at 1 o'clock, and we have Sat fans. Can't wait. Can't wait. I wait with as much anticipation as everybody else does because we haven't heard it. We hear it live in real time just as everybody else.
I love that you gave a little shout out to Bart Scott right there.
Can't wait. Can't wait to see the Chiefs miss the postseason. I don't know why. I kind of went Mr. T there.
You did. There was a little more
I pity
Mr.
the fool
T.
that picks Chiefs losing the playoffs. Pity the fool.
Yeah, Bart Scott is more of a can't wait to be wrong about pretty much every preseason prediction that I had this year.
By the way, I was going to continue talking college basketball there because I do want to talk about a stat that C.J. Moore put out, which is fascinating. C.J. Moore, The Athletic, covers college basketball, that KU is ranked 276th in post-up.
No. Flip your numbers there. Hold on.
726th?
No.
673rd.
327th.
327th in post-up. Is it efficiency? Frequency. Post-up frequency, according to Synergy, which is a website that is pretty awesome in breaking down to the minutia of, ISOs and defenses that teams are in, and obviously post-up frequency, 327th.
327th.
I'm going to write that down just so I don't keep saying the wrong number. 327.
90 spots worse than you're about to say. Worse is subjective, I guess.
Yeah, but
they were 103rd last year, according to CJ, for reference.
Would you have guessed that?
No.
Bill Self is going to coach a team.
Never.
That is, a top 3 seed in the NCAA tournament right now. I haven't looked at Bracket Matrix lately, but a team that's, sitting atop or one game out from, the lead in the Big 12. They're 327th in post-up frequency, and clearly they are playing one-on-one. Clearly this is a new league in which it is just one-on-one basketball, make it, take it. And odds are you're not going to post up as frequent as you would in maybe a 5-on-5. And so he's gone with just the straight-up one-on-one step backs, not backing anybody down in the post. It's just like that. It's bizarro world.
Yeah.
It's bizarro world to be alive. And it's just popped into my head in a comparison, and college basketball different than college football. But there was a time when Nick Saban complained about how fast offenses were going because it was dangerous for the sport and for the players. And he was running the football, and other teams were passing it and spreading the field, and his big lumbering linebackers that were going to come and break your chest plate when they hit you couldn't then run sideline to sideline, and there was an advantage that was picked up by other teams, and Nick Saban didn't like it until Nick Saban goes into a national championship game and throws more than he runs the ball. And he's adjusted. I don't think this is necessarily the way that Bill Self is going to play basketball moving forward. But if I were to guess, I'd guess it's more likely than not that Bill Self is evolving with the times, that it's not just the high-low. It's not just the the offense and post up and have your Cole Aldrich and your players like that, that it's going to be more positionless basketball. And you can have a KJ Adams that runs the floor. And do you need him to post up? Well, maybe he can. But also, when you go up against a team whose entire offense, I'm not talking about last night, I'm talking about Saturday. You go up against a team whose entire offense should be feeding the post. Oscar Tshiebwe should have touched the ball every single time down the floor.
Or you just chuck shots from half court and let him get the offensive rebounds.
But he wasn't doing that because
that's true.
The game plan, we haven't even talked about the game plan for Bill Self against Kentucky. The fact that UK has athletes that can dribble drive, and as they were going into the lane, KJ Adams did not lose contact with Oscar. It was like he was glued to him. It was like he was connected to his hip, like it was Greg Kinnear and Matt Damon. He didn't leave him, no matter what. No matter what was going on with Kentucky's offense, he stayed there. That was clearly the game plan. You are not going to help out on defense. You are always going to be guarding Oscar. You're going to box him out because the second you go and help, he's got the offensive rebound. That's 2 points. If you help out, they're going to score 2. I'll take my chances with you limiting the offensive rebounds and just being physical with an incredibly physical player and let the other guys play their role, play their defense, and everybody's got to do their job. Know your role, do your job. Know your role and shut your mouth. Jabroni. But that game plan, when you go up against them that is centered around the center in Oscar Tshiebwe, and you're watching a Bill Self squad that has the undersized post player, the post player that's going to be more getting up and down the floor, the athletic guy, and he's more positionless basketball, and Calipari, who kind of was at the forefront at college basketball of positionless basketball. I mean, he's the first one I can remember saying that in college. Well, we're positionless. You guys want to talk about point guard, this guy? We switch. We play all different types of positions. We're not going to be pigeonholed to one thing or another. This is how we're playing basketball moving forward. And that's where a lot of teams have gone to in positionless. Missouri plays positionless basketball. K-State, positionless basketball, essentially. You've got your point guard, right? DeJuan Harris, Marquise Noel. You've got your guys that East and Honor. So you've got guys that are like point guards, and you got guys that understand a role. But it's not back in the day where you have your 2 wings, your point guard, you got your small forward, and you got your power forward and your center. And Bill Self is playing basketball where he's in the 320s of posting up. And I'm going to guess that's probably who he's going to be moving forward, because we saw it even with McCormick last year when you would spread the floor, and the year before that. And moving forward, while he's had some big men, I think this is how you win in college basketball. You don't see the North Carolina of a few years ago. Was that 2017 when North Carolina won with forget who the players were on that team that were the Bear. I'll figure it out real quick.
I got a KU take for you here on Bill Self there. Other than
Kennedy Meeks, Isaiah Hicks, and Tony Bradley.
The thing it could be beyond just how the game is evolving and Bill Self evolving with the game is it makes me think of what I am going to just refer to from here on out as the Dedrick Lawson season. Because you had Udoka Azubuike on that team, but he just played 9 games there. You had Mitch Lightfoot. He was playing 11 minutes per game, and again, you're averaging out him having to play more with Azubuike being out. David McCormick was getting work. He started a handful of games that year and appeared in a bunch. He was playing about 11 minutes a game. And you have seen, and that's just one example, that just feels like such an outlier, maybe because it was just that 1 year of the Lawsons, and it just sort of, it felt like a successful season, but it was different from kind of the typical Bill Self flavor. Seeing him be adaptive to his personnel, that's a hard thing to do whenever you're the constant. Like in college basketball, I try not to hold a grudge against college coaches who say, hey, you're coming here to run what we do, because I've been here for 1,000,000 years and I might be here for another eon. Like, this is the Bill Self program. But really good coaches have to adapt to what the players that they have end up doing well, especially when you have to adjust on the fly, obviously, when injuries come around and stuff like that. But seeing Bill Self be adaptive isn't new, but seeing him adapt this way is. And so I think that's just another little, it's not like, oh, I needed to see this from Bill Self, but seeing him continue to kind of innovate as he goes, I do not think that is ever a guarantee that a head of a program, especially one as accomplished as Bill Self, never a guarantee that they're going to adjust with the times and with their lineup. He certainly had a type, and now it doesn't seem like KU is even recruiting for the sort of, twin towers and the post-up opportunities, which is, I think, a reflection of how the game's evolved. But seeing Self evolve as well, just it creates a really interesting changing identity for the program.
There's also probably just less of those type of guys that come into college anymore.
Sure,
that's probably right as well.
And the ones who are really good at it aren't there for very long, and now you're building around that guy for a year or two.
Yeah, because the guys that are that big are,
rim runners.
Yeah, Mo Diarra's 6'10", and he's
Or
shooting
spotting up for three.
Shooting threes, exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
They're stretching the floor. That he went from 2020, the best team, with a 7-foot, 270-pound center.
Right.
Now you surrounded him with four guys that were kind of guards. I mean, not even kind of. There were four guards. It was Dotson and Garrett, and then Moss and Ochai, and Christian Brown was there. Every once in a while, it was pretty rare, but every once in a while, McCormick would be on the floor at the same time as Azubuike. But it's not really something they went to often. It was mainly either or, and mainly Azubuike. But you went from that to then the next year surrounding guys, surrounding McCormick was sort of the same thing, to then the next year surrounding McCormick, sort of the same thing. And then this year, essentially surrounding KJ Adams, who's 6'7". I mean, the most frequently used lineup for KU in the last 5 games, this is 40% of the lineup. DeJuan Harris, 6'1". Kevin McCullough, 6'6". Grady Dick, 6'8". Jalen Wilson, 6'8". KJ Adams, 6'7". 40% of the minutes that have been played in the last 5 games is that lineup. And just a few years ago, he had 7'2", 270 Azubuike in there that was blocking everything and controlling the paint and controlling the defense and controlling the ball in possessions, whether it's screen and roll or, just simply posting up. I mean, you got to be adaptable, but can you be adaptable and still be great? That's different.
One of the most fun KU seasons in recent memory, the big man was Landon Lucas, and he was surrounded by the coolest, greatest guard duo in basketball at that time, and one of the most memorable ever with Frank Mason and Devontae Graham. And meanwhile, they were doing it running alongside Josh Jackson and Svi Mikhailuk and sophomore LeGerald Vick.
Speaking of running, Svi Mikhailuk.
Exactly.
Is it?
He just could. He can cover a lot. He can cover a lot of ground.
Too soon, or is it too late, or is it too early? Like when's the
freaking Jason just always wants to blame the refs. This guy
talking about the refs.
Just I'm Jason Anderson, and I always blame the refs for everything. It's always the refs' fault. It's never about basketball being played or just good sports or not allowing yourself to need a refs call to bail you out. No. It's always the refs' fault. Blah blah blah. I'm Jason Anderson.
The fact that last year they were also able to have Perry Ellis come off the bench.
Yeah, it was incredible. I was shocked that he had 17 more years of eligibility.
Well,
but
he's been there since 1899.
I mean,
that's
how
right.
many guys have been able to take Devontae Graham on host him on a tour in his recruiting trip, and then also help out in that 2023 season?
I mean, it's
not
just,
many.
It's so cool to be able to say, I learned first from James Naismith, and now Bill Self continues to refine my game. I mean, what an incredible story.
Hey, Perry, how would you compare James Naismith and Paul Gallen
and coaching style
and Bill Self? Compare those. Compare and contrast.
Compare and contrast. Could you talk about
talk about the coaches?
Talk about coach.
Well, I will say that Bill Self, he does have more of an up-tempo style than those guys. We do like to get up and down the floor. He incorporates the three way more than they did. In fact, they didn't even do it.
They didn't do it at all.
They just ignored it.
Which I thought was weird.
To them, it didn't even exist.
And also, you gotta remember, it must have been way harder to play basketball when everything was in black and white.
Yeah. And having
telling the uniforms apart, I mean,
and having to climb the ladder after every basket
to go get it out.
There was no fast break off of a made bucket. Roy Williams would not have been able to exist back then. You cannot have a fast break off a made bucket. It cannot happen. Climb the ladder, get the ball out. All right,
doing all of that under all of the attention of the Revolutionary War. I mean, Perry Ellis must have just been so busy. Stressful time.
Not easy to do, but thank goodness he is a walking.
Man, he could have posted up Napoleon so easily.
Mouse in the house! Mouse in the house!
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
That whole bit was stupid. Beards, you mark that so we can hear how stupid that was again tomorrow?
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we'll talk with Mick Shaffer, hang out with him for the last hour of the show. He'll be heading down to Phoenix on Saturday. He's going to beat the Chiefs there. He's going to be the welcoming committee for the Chiefs down in Phoenix. They'll get their Sunday. Travel day for the Chiefs Sunday. We'll hear from them tomorrow and Friday. And then they'll be heading down to Phoenix on Sunday. And then Media Day, Monday night. We'll have you covered there with the sound and a lot of different interviews the next day that we'll bring to Sports Radio 810 from Media Day 2023 in Phoenix. And then all the other media availability and the Radio Row interviews all next week. And if I get one more person saying I should interview Solomon Wilcots, then I will be able to retire if I had $1.
Ready.
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Have you done it? What'd you do last night in Vegas?
I was in Kansas City last night.
Cool. Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson, Josh Brisco, Beards. KSHB Sports Director Mick Shaffer joining us here in the Zone. Just a few days from you heading down to Phoenix. It's a little nicer there than it is right here.
I checked it out. Most days it's going to be a high of like in the high 60s.
Mm-hmm. 73 a couple days.
Yep.
You know?
Most days it's going to be lows in the low 40s. It is
Saw
a
that.
dramatic change,
Yeah.
right? It's like it's Grinky from his fastball to his changeup,
That's right. But around here it's going to be like mid-50s next week.
It's going to be unseasonably warm.
Yeah, so like why can't that just be this week and then next week head to Phoenix for us? I mean, I just feel like the weather should revolve around us.
Careful, those were $14 at a gas station.
Hey, Brisco,
Yeah.
how bright is your future?
Not that bright, Jason, but I am wearing Mick Shaffer sunglasses anyway.
Okay, well, your future is so bright you've got to wear shades.
I disagree.
You know who wears sunglasses inside?
Corey Hart.
Blind people and AHs.
Wow, well, Jack Nicholson's got some
He's one of those
strong
dudes.
words for you.
Yeah, maybe he's one of those.
I think he can see fine, so.
Not saying he's not one of those couple players.
Ray Charles, famously both.
Really? Was he? I have no idea. I didn't know him. I never met him. So
Carl Cheffers, famously both.
Will he be wearing sunglasses in Phoenix during the game?
Wait and see.
Stevie Wonder was only one of those.
That's
He
right.
was just an AH.
That's right.
There have been accusations.
That's what I'm referring
You see him catch a mic stand? I mean, that happened.
You see him at there was a.
I mean, he got to AAA with the Marlins, so I mean, he couldn't have been.
I don't think.
Well, yeah, but were the Marlins any good?
It's true. They were taking anybody.
I'm telling you. Okay, so Google Stevie Wonder mic stand. There's a 9-second video with 1.8 million views called "Is Stevie Wonder Really Blind?" It's the end of some sort of fundraiser, and Paul McCartney walks off. Jerry Seinfeld's over here. Paul McCartney knocks over the mic stand. Stevie Wonder catches the mic stand.
Yeah, but all of your senses are heightened when you lose one. That's a spidey sense. It's incredibly heightened.
Maybe you heard the squeaking of the mic
Could be.
stand falling.
Could be.
I would believe that. I can't remember what it was yesterday or a couple of days ago. I might have just been yelling at Beards about it. I don't remember. But it was something like
yelling.
ever so. Oh no, I was talking to Curtis yesterday about a segment that they were doing on the program. And the audio quality was just a little bit. Gary Parrish's audio quality was so good that I noticed it hearing it through the speaker in the bathroom. And I walked over afterwards and I asked Curtis, like, what's Gary Parrish's? We talked about it for like 10 minutes because we've heard a lot of audio. So I could see you at some point just like knowing what it sounds like when a mic stand's about to fall over if you're literally Stevie Wonder.
So
when you're pooping,
on
your
Twitter,
senses are heightened.
I was at the urinal and everything.
On
so,
Twitter,
you were pooping?
On Twitter, the trending topic in sports, it's a name. The trending topic in sports on Twitter is D Ford. D Ford is the trending topic.
Have you made sure it's not for like a bad reason?
No, because it's a D Ford getting the 2018 AFC Championship game script. Boy, the NFL is rigged. What did D Ford have to say when he was lined up off sides and he was supposed to do that?
The worst one was Alex Smith, week 11, whatever, 2018.
And then there are others that are just responding to like, he wasn't trying to inflict harm on Patrick Mahomes. And somebody responds and says, well, D Ford wasn't going to inflict harm on Tom Brady when he lined up off sides. Another one was like, you shouldn't throw a flag that decides a game that you can win or lose on that flag. And someone goes, well, somebody tell D Ford when he lined up off sides when the Chiefs won the AFC Championship game. D Ford trending in sports today. So that's fun. That's fun. It's not even January 21st, 2019. And he's trending. So there you go. What'd you have there, Mick? You're showing text.
No,
Is
just
that,
an
is that
on-the-air
content?
conversation. I don't know
Okay,
if you guys
good.
had talked about that.
I didn't know if that was content or not.
No, I wasn't sure what it was either. I was just looking at Mick, so we can keep it moving.
Yeah. Jeff Allen tweeting out a picture of somebody just crying on the floor saying, my reaction when I saw the script of D Ford had to line up off sides. It's so great. It's a response to Arian Foster, who was playing a sarcastic role.
Hopefully.
We got the script for what we were supposed to do.
I loved it. Was a Barstool thing, right?
Do you still have the clean audio of that somewhere,
Asked him
Beards?
about, what about when the script said your career's going to fall off a cliff?
No, it's on my laptop.
Can you just play the intro, though?
I hold on. Give me 1 second. I'll get it moved over.
Just move it over. Why don't you just move it over?
You have the DM still, right, Beards? You can grab it from that.
I got it. Don't worry. Hang on.
Cool.
Give me 1 minute.
All right.
There's a picture of Paul Rudd crying, reading a book, saying D Ford reading the 2018 AFC Championship game script. Why? Why do I have to do that?
Antonio Brown is the greatest method actor of our time.
Yep.
Think about
absolutely.
that, man. We need you to dye your mustache blonde.
Listen,
We need you to
Alex.
burn your feet in the cold.
We're going to need you to take one for the team. It's going to be a rough road back, but when you are
Your
named,
life will be threatened.
When you're comeback player of the year, and
It'll be worth it.
and we're going to name the trophy after
When you get that
like 4 or 5 days.
8x10 trophy, it's going to be worth it.
It's gonna be totally worth it.
I've got it.
Hey, Deshaun Watson, what if we had you just? You're okay with this? Okay, great. Let's go down this script.
I'm glad you said that instead of me like I did during the break.
I took it from him to save him.
I bet Jason's glad that you took credit for that one, Beards.
Yeah, I am actually.
There's a whole lot of people not named me who came up with that one.
Here's Arian Foster. We believe playing a role, a very dry, sarcastic role about the scripts and NFL being rigged.
It's funny, before we started taping, Arian was telling me about how the NFL is rigged and how every year he used to get a script.
Yeah.
Day one of training camp that would get dropped off at his locker. And you would have to, it was like week 1, you'll do this. Week 2, you're going to have a hamstring injury. Week 3, this is going to happen. Week 4, you're going to get 3 touchdowns. And so then you just have to, did you memorize those before the season started? Or would you go and rehearse the script before every game?
We were really dedicated to it. So it was more so like, that's what practice was about. It was about practicing the script. Like, this is what goes on and this is what we have to do in order to,
And this referee's going to miss this call.
Yeah,
because
we
they
knew.
hate you
Yeah.
and they love the Colts,
Yeah,
that
it's
sort
like,
of thing.
WWF, so it's like, you know, we know what's going to happen, but you still got to put on a show.
Yeah.
What did you think when you got the script in 2016 that said your career was going to fall off a cliff when you stopped believing in God?
That was 2015.
Yeah.
What did you think when you got the script? Very straightforward. Very
Hey,
straightforward.
listen, Lynn Elliott. We're gonna make sure you've had a nice career to this point, okay? But then, well, here's the deal.
Yeah,
you went
there. And this tweet.
Oh, what's my redemption story gonna be? Go.
There isn't. Your redemption story is just going to be people don't ever use your name, and they start boycotting people that do use your name. This tweet comes in from Tyler. Says, Ndamukong Suh's favorite quarterbacks to sack via NFL Live, #1, Patrick Mahomes. Will get his opportunity in the Super
Favorite
Bowl.
meaning he likes to do it the most, or he's done it the most?
Just favorite quarterbacks to sack. Favorite
How many
quarterbacks
times
that
has
he
sacked.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Who would they?
The Buccaneers. He must have gotten them.
I remember the Bucks, and then they played him with like the Lions or anything. Did
Probably got him with the Bucks. I mean, he was on that defensive line that was.
He played in the Super
backfield.
Bowl, then he definitely got him. They were like water boys.
Yes,
that got
Rams the
sacks
year
on.
before that. The Dolphins for a few years, and then the Lions for like 5.
He definitely got him in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
at least once, but.
Yeah, I don't know how many times he's gone up against Patrick Mahomes because all of those years that we talked about, he would have had to play when Mahomes was playing.
What about favorite quarterbacks for him to stomp on with his cleats? What, is that a list?
I don't know.
Oddly, it's somehow still Patrick Mahomes, even though he's never done it.
His list of favorite quarterbacks to sack, #1, this boy, Ndamukong Suh's range of how long he's played. #1, Patrick Mahomes. #2, Tony Romo. #3, Aaron Rodgers. #4, Tom Brady. #5, Jay Cutler.
Wow.
His 5th favorite quarterback to sack is Jay Cutler. Mahomes to Cutler. That's Ndamukong Suh and his favorite quarterbacks to sack. Look, that defensive front's freaking good. And Mahomes is going to have to be much healthier next to Sunday than he was this past Sunday because he's going to need to get outside the pocket. I don't think it's going to be 2020 Bucks Super Bowl, but he's going to have to make some plays and be creative because they're going to bring
He's not
some.
going to be able to run like that.
Well, he had surgery on that foot, right? Like a couple weeks later with the toe. He said that was the most painful injury he's had.
Injury he's had, yeah.
Yeah, he had to walk and curl his toes while he was walking. So, I mean,
is that why he walks that way?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's curl your toes and walk around. You will feel like you're walking like a toddler, which is sort of what it looks like when he runs.
Your hands will be out and your head will be.
Who's the coach a couple of years ago that said when Mahomes is jogging down the field, don't fall for his old man, I'm hurt.
Yeah.
Getting back to the huddle thing, his old man jog, getting back to that. And it's so true. He does sort of jog like a old man that's all beaten up and everything. And this is before the, ankle injury. He's got that to his game. And then he, just fast enough. That's what he is. Just fast enough, even on one ankle. Fast enough.
Well, that's how I described him last week and why I wasn't worried about him being 85%, 90%, whatever he was, because he's like the master of like knowing his strengths and his limitations, the opponent's strengths and limitations, the guy's barreling down on him, and then just doing those computations in his head like that.
Yeah.
To where like, okay, this is what I can do. Okay, this is what I can't do. I better switch my left hand, or I better flip it, or I better, turn and throw. I've got time to turn and throw. And so he's just going to factor that part in of his ankle to those mathematical algorithms going on in his head every single, nanosecond, and it's going to be just fine.
He's so good that in the
how good is he?
The Let's Go podcast with Jim Gray and Tom Brady and Larry Fitzgerald that came out yesterday, and then today Tom Brady announces his retirement.
They had all the words.
I bet the
English
podcast
language to come up with a name, and that's what they chose.
I bet the podcast was the sponsors of that podcast pretty excited that Tom Brady then the next morning is like, "Hey guys, I just woke up today, decided I'm gonna retire."
Walked out on the beach. Thought I'd just do a little Twitter video, no sponsors or anything on it.
Not while recording my hour-long podcast with Jim Gray. But Jim Gray, after Tom Brady was done, he was then talking with Larry Fitzgerald. So it's the Larry Fitzgerald, Tom Brady, and Jim Gray podcast, but it's one at a time.
Yeah, it's kind of clunky. I watched
it's weird.
One with Andy Reid.
And in the middle of like a conversation, like, so Larry Fitzgerald, what do you think of Kleenex? It's the brand that the brand you love. Just starts giving a sponsor out of nowhere. But Jim Gray, Patrick Mahomes is so good that Jim Gray talking to Larry Fitzgerald about that penalty by Osai, saying that Patrick Mahomes, even knowing how fast he can run, to induce the penalty from Osai, to get close enough to the sideline and know that he's going to hit you and then get out of bounds and induce it.
Almost like
wow, he's that good. Like he was then doing the geometry and the calculation of if I turn the corner here and I start to go at an angle here, Osai's going to give me a forearm shiver here.
I bet he hadn't thought about, or I bet somebody's thought about to where like, okay, I know I'm out of bounds. Now I'm going to not continue my momentum in this direction at this much speed. It's kind of almost like a basketball player. I'm going to seek out the contact here.
Except he had 2 feet out of bounds.
Both. Yeah.
Here's my, it's not really a conspiracy. It's just a, I don't know if this is even a 1% chance, but you think there's at least a possibility that in practice, nothing that would ever become public, that it's like with the Bengals, look, man, if you're close to hitting Mahomes and he's close to, give him a hit. All right, it'll be worth the 15 yards to do that. This guy's
absolutely that's said.
And then
by every team,
and then Osai lost his mind.
In maybe like the first half.
Right, but Osai lost his mind. It was like, oh, this is what we talked about, and then boom, and then went, oh, bleep, not at this point. Oh, no, that was supposed to be earlier that we did that, and just lost his mind because it might have been something they were talking about. Hey, if it's questionable near the sideline and he's out of bounds a little bit, give him a chuck, man. Let's let him know that we're going to be here, and if he can't run around, he's going to get hit by us throughout the game. And then he did it with 8 seconds left,
and he got hurt.
Yeah, I think he hyperextended his leg. It looked pretty bad at first. It looked like,
but that is, I mean, look, that's a dangerous hit because there are other bodies and instruments over there and like benches and in this case Sunday like fans, warming fans, heating equipment, nets for those damn kickers, right?
Yeah. But like
a million things that can go wrong over there.
The whole not call it thing, and I want to hear sad fans because they may talk about it too, but the whole not call it thing, it's like, well, don't let the official decide the game. Like, what if Mahomes lands and pops his shoulder and then they go into overtime? Like, Okay, well, not calling it, you just sort of decided it because now Chad Henne's in the game against the Bengals because you're not calling it. And I like that Gene Steratore was like, that's a penalty on the first play of the game. It's a penalty on the last play of the game. It's not even close.
2 points there. I mean, like, for anybody that ever believes that games should be refereed differently at different times, I just don't understand that logic at all. Because, like you say all the time, the players are determining it. That guy decided to foul.
Yeah.
That guy decided to incur some sort of penalty. But then also, I mean, that's nowhere near a controversial call if you've watched football, man, at all. And listen, if you want to argue about, like, okay, that shouldn't be a rule, and, a defender's at the split-second deal, how's he supposed to know his foot just landed out of it, whatever, I'll hear that, because I think it is pretty chintzy, those rules, and they take it to an extreme, and it's a big-time disadvantage on the defensive players. But the rule's there, and that's how it's been for a long, long time, man. Long time.
I think the psychology of you don't want that call made late in the game, not specifically that call, but late game calls, is because we've sort of accepted that asking referees to be correct at their job is too much, that we will never get it. And so the next best thing is to just not have to see the stripe show up, because that feels closer to just letting football play it out. Obviously, that's not how it functionally plays out, but I think that's where the urge comes from, is you would rather see the end of the game without referees being involved. They still need to be there to enforce the rules, but that's the ideal that I think most people would have.
The irony that's being lost on those that are saying the officials shouldn't be deciding the game that late and throwing the flag, the irony is by asking the officials to then make a judgment of how much time's left, what's the score, and then do I throw a flag on this particular play, even though it's a penalty, is actually asking them to help decide the game.
And look, referees do official that way, especially in college basketball.
There's
right?
a lot of that.
The whole of, like, okay, he made that layup, I'm not calling the foul. Oh, he missed it. A couple seconds later, I'm going to call that foul.
Yeah.
NBA does that.
Yeah. Well, the replays kind of hurt the whole, like, he kind of slapped his hand, and I know the ball went out of bounds on him, but I didn't call the foul. Okay, so I'm going to give it to that team because I didn't call them. Now replay is I didn't call the foul. Oh, and it's their and it's also their ball too, because or it's the other team's ball, even though you should be called for a foul. But I just wanted to keep playing. Oh, replay there. All right. Sad fans, Beards. Sad fans.
Yeah, they're pretty sad.
Are fans sad?
Yeah, some of them.
I thought I was going to be sad for a good portion of that second half.
Yeah.
I felt like there was going to be some sad fans, Chiefs, that I was going to.
Were you going to get on Reddit and type away?
I was going to sit over there on the balcony and close the door while sad fans played if the Chiefs did not win. But they did.
We were going to play sad fans on the Chiefs.
We would have done it.
Yep.
Beards is nothing if not fair.
We've done it 3 times this year.
Good for you.
We've done it 3 times. Only 3 times. We will only do it 3 times. Let's hear it, Beards. Take it away, sad fans, Bengals.
And now, a list of things that Cincinnati Bengals fans said on Reddit after losing to the Kansas City referees, according to them. Are we still pretending that Mahomes is hurt? Holy someone take away Tony's Coke. Oh, God, that tip almost blew my heart and out. NFL is so rigged. Yes. Come on, D. Stiffen up. Mahomes' little ponytail hair tuft coming out of the back of his helmet is taking me the out. Skull emoji, crying laughing emoji. And the NFL will get their scripted Kelsey Brothers Super Bowl. Props to number 95 for not roughing Burrow with that sack. Chiefs legit run 3 plays and get into field goal range. Might be able to watch The Last of Us at this rate. As stupid as that result was, can we cover Kelsey at all? Thanks to Intuit QuickBooks, proud sponsor of the NFL, I was able to start my own business. How has literally every Chief receiver been open? Congrats, NFL. You get your Kelsey Brothers Bowl, and Mahomes gets to play at State Farm Arena. Clapping emoji.
Wow.
I hate Travis Kelce and his fake back spasms. Well, time to pour a large glass of wine. A mega pint, if you will. I'm glad we managed to talk an absolute ton of all week, really paying off.
Nice.
Impeach that mayor. Whopper, 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 whopper. Sad face emoji. Alpha chick carries 5 beers in a crowded bar with no tray. Beta loser guy needs a tray for 4 beers. LOL, what a loser. Romo mad because Burrow his wife. Tony Romo has Jim Carrey's haircut from Dumb and Dumber. Legally. How many linemen can we draft this year? Yeah, Mahomes fake limp, not buying it. Can we cover MVS? He's the only wide receiver left. Rono is a beast. He has so many. He'll be a legend in San Fernando Valley. NFL successfully implementing the Mahomes protocol. Why can't we just have a competent O-line in the playoffs? NFL wants Patrick Jordan Mahomes in the Super Bowl. He can't keep getting away with this. We got in the bull. I freaking hate Apple, dude. Every time I actually sit down to watch, something bad happens. I will walk away now. This stupid league. Me and all my homies hate Chris Jones. Jim Nance. But that wasn't intentional grounding. Wasn't P. Ryan a couple steps away? Tony. I don't know, Jim. I would pay thousands of dollars to be one of those guys who is oblivious to sports. I swear I would. See y'all next year. The worst part isn't even losing. It's now having to hear the glug glug on Mahomes for the next 2 weeks. Go Birds. Work on O-line. Get rid of Apple. Profit. I'm not mad they lost. I'm mad at how the refs really f***ed up those last 2 minutes. Missed walking the back on the punt return. Missed hands to the face on Jones all game. Missed holding on Hendrickson on that last scramble. Bullshit late hit when contact was initiated inbounds and a daytime Emmy-worthy flop from Kermit. Bullshit intentional grounding call, followed by not calling it in the exact same circumstance less than a minute later. We should have played better, but these refs need a better health plan because they're blind. The mayor of Cincinnati lost us this game. Tell me I'm wrong. Time to draft 7 linemen? Comment. The game was in our hands. Reply. They look like big, good, strong hands, don't they? I always thought that's what they were. Oh. I blame Tony Romo sucking all the air out of the stadium because he never shuts up. Comment. I can't believe this. At least everyone can see the blatant favoritism the NFL has front and center. Reply. You mean the Chiefs being in more commercial time than playtime wasn't the first red flag? I now understand why my granddad watches college football and doesn't get invested in NFL games. Comment. Hendrickson is held multiple times and every game nobody ever calls it. Reply. The best counter to the spin move is to hold them so they can't spin. I'm tired of being above it. That was a hit job by the refs. And now, the runner-up. Hollywood still out of ideas that they're coking up bears. And now, the winner of things that Bengals fans said on Reddit. I thought it was Burrowhead.
Well, that's it.
Whew, all right. Beards, one of your better performances, I think, particularly your Tony Romo impression.
Yeah. I don't know, Jim.
It's so true.
I rewatched that game. He had some missteps, man. He had some swings and misses.
He did.
Calling it. They're going for it on fourth down, Jim. They're going on fourth down.
4th and 6. They're not going to go for it here, so you better not jump off. That was the pass all the way down the field to Jamar Chase to start the fourth quarter.
But then the one when it was actually still 3rd down, he was at 4th. They're doing it. They're going.
They're bringing him back out. They're going for it. This is risky.
And then the one, the pass, what Bengals fans thought it was should be intentional grounding on Mahomes, and even Romo said, "Oh, he's got to get it back to the line of scrimmage." Yeah. No, he doesn't. Just got to get it close to the
line of scrimmage.
That's a rule when you're outside of the pocket and you're just chucking it away.
It landed at the feet of Travis Kelce. Yes. And oh, by the way, there were 2 other throws by Burrow that he threw right at the feet of Samaje Perine on a screen pass.
Well behind the line of scrimmage.
Yes.
You're allowed to do that.
Screen pass. It was McDuffie blitzing, and Burrow saw the blitz and just threw it right at the feet of Perine. Like 2 feet in front of Burrow, but at the feet of Pirine behind the line of scrimmage. It doesn't
every game.
Yes, it doesn't have to be that. But when Pirine is 7 yards down the field past the line of scrimmage, yeah. Also, they picked up a first down after that.
Well, and then I think he's apparently been told to stop calling out the play beforehand, right?
I saw somebody theorize that, you know what else has changed? He's been out of the NFL a little longer. And so you are a little bit less attuned to what other teams are doing. I'm at a point now where you ever have a band that you really like they put out 2 or 3 great albums, you're like, man, this band's great. And then they put out a stinker, and you're like, well, I hope this is a brief diversion and not a new direction. That's where I'm at with Romo at this point.
That's
I
what
just
he
hope this
brought
is a
to
blip.
the table, I thought, the most.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was his best quality, and he doesn't do it anymore.
There was, I think it might have been on 3rd and 4 with the Chris Jones sack, where he was just scribbling on the screen, just where he thought he wasn't explaining it. I think Nance was talking. He was just drawing on the screen little routes that weren't there.
It was the
it ended up being a big play. I can't remember what happened.
Second down play. What was the last play at the end of the second half, or at the end of first half, when Burrow threw the ball that was incomplete and Jones just beat the.
It was a Chris Jones play. Okay,
Jones,
I'll take it.
And it made Burrow throw the ball earlier, and it was the last play before they kicked the field goal before the end of half. And there were 8 different yellow lines on the screen.
Scribbling, yeah.
Burrow had 2 steps back in his drop back, and the yellow lines were still there.
It's funny.
As to where the guys were going to go, because it was like, T's going to go over here, Hayden Hurst is going to do this, and this is where you're going to be, hut, and this is guy going to, oh, wait, Burrow's got the ball. I don't know, Jim. What do you think's going to happen here?
Tony.
Or when at the snap, Romo asked Jim, I don't know, Jim. What do you think they're going to do?
I'm just here to say what I'm seeing, Tony.
Tony, that's your job? I don't know. I enjoyed the broadcast. I don't know. It's fine. It's fine. I enjoyed it really at the end. The end of the broadcast was good. I enjoyed the first part of the broadcast when the Chiefs were up 6-0 and then 13-3, and then they got the interception by Jalen Watson.
And you stopped enjoying the broadcast.
I enjoyed that. I didn't enjoy it as much from that point until it was tied at 13. I enjoyed it when they were up 20-13 and driving with the ball. I really enjoyed that. I did not enjoy it as much the rest of the way until the Chris Jones sack on 3rd and 8. And from that point forward, loved it.
Yep.
It was a really enjoyable broadcast.
Game gave me a Burrow headache.
You've been sitting on that one for a while?
No, I tweeted it. I tweeted it Sunday night.
Oh. I tweeted Burrow head your ass back to Cincinnati.
That's funny.
And then Danny Klinkskill quote tweeted and said, well, Burrow really wasn't the one talking or anything this week.
Thanks, Danny.
And so then I replied and I said, cool, he can still Burrow head his ass back to Cincinnati. Cool, he can still Burrow head his ass back there. That's fine. I don't care if he was talking or not.
Beards, will you mark that one? I think that one might be a good one. Don't worry about it, Jason.
Well, I said it 4 times.
No, yeah, the last one for some reason really, I think out of context will be borderline indiscernible.
Great, let's do it.
It'll be good.
Let's do it.
I like to plan for Friday.
Yeah, you like to about time. There is a day you plan for. Good to know.
I mean, I don't do it very often, but every once in a while, I like to keep you on your toes.
To know. Tom Brady has retired.
What?
The Denver Broncos have traded for Sean Payton.
Trading for coaches is always weird. It rarely happens, but every few years it will.
And a backup offensive lineman for the Eagles has been indicted on rape and kidnapping charges.
Hello, distraction.
Ooh, yeah, that is an interesting piece of information to come out of Philadelphia today, about an hour ago. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
This is going to be so stupid, but here we go.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, heading up until 2 o'clock. Tom Brady announced this morning he is retiring. He woke up this morning on February 1st and said, you know what? I'm just going to retire. 1 year ago, on February 1st is when he also retired. So next year, February 1st,
Feels like it's Groundhog Day.
It is. I believe him, though. I believe him. I think he's done. I think he's actually done this time. I think you do get one, I'm not going to retire, you come back. And then after that, it's kind of like, all right, go. Yeah, he's done.
Trey Lance is going to get hurt at the end of training camp. Brady's not going to be there for training camp. His phone's going to ring. We're doing this again.
Okay, it's one of those.
One of those.
He's retiring until needed.
He's retiring from going to training camp.
Technically, if you play for the Raiders, are you technically in the NFL?
Great question.
Which also, by the way, does Derek Carr fake an injury? Because the Raiders cut him or sent him home because they didn't want him to get injured, because if he gets injured, they owe him the $40 million.
Do they owe him the money if he gets hurt because someone pulls his flag and he crumples? All of a sudden, is he getting $40 extra million from the Raiders?
Is there a way he can be hurt enough to get the money, but then still play with the team next year?
Where are
and
they
be
playing
their
that
quarterback?
game?
Vegas.
Is that turf or not?
No, it's turf. That's going to be turf.
Yeah, you got to go. Is it turf at Allegiant?
I don't know. I think that's one of the fields maybe where they
the grass
pull it out. Yeah.
Oh, I guess that's true. I'm not sure.
But it's not like those. But it's not like those fields that do that have great footing. Look at Arizona. You know, can't wait for that. That should also be a storyline, is how bad the grass is, and it will be with the Chiefs. I think. I don't know if it will be with the Eagles.
It's looked pretty good so far. I saw the early looks at the grass growing outside, and they got George Toma back out there again.
Yeah, the only thing that looks good to me is that the ground god's there.
I trust the Sod God.
Sod God.
Is that right? Is that is that the nickname? Having Sod God on the premises makes me feel better.
Well, both of these teams played in Arizona earlier this year. Chiefs played the Cardinals in Week 1, and the Eagles played the Cardinals in Week 5. So they both have already played there on that turf. So it's not like one or the other has to get used to, playing on that.
Can
on
you
that
get
surface.
used to injuries though?
Yeah, you can absolutely.
Okay.
You can. I mean, Mahomes getting used to playing in the playoffs with
What was
foot
it? It was
injuries.
was it the TCU Michigan game there? I think it was, and it was awful.
This is weird.
Yeah.
So Allegiant can do real grass or turf. The Raiders prefer real grass. UNLV plays on turf.
Why wouldn't you want the real grass if you're UNLV?
I saw
Not
that.
like it's a
Maybe it's crappy.
a
UNLV
budget
prefers
thing.
it.
Oklahoma State played at Chase Field in their bowl game, and it was awful. I mean, just the air down there with the grass and everything in the time of year. It was bad.
I mean, I hope. Look, I hope that's not an issue. I hope it's not a storyline coming out of the game is how bad it was and people slipping and falling and injuries and the turf coming up and things like that. I also don't want Harrison Butker to approach a field goal in a crucial moment and think, is the ground going to give out while I plant? I've got to trust that the ground is going to be stable when I put my foot down in this, because he's been good in the postseason. He's been fine. He's in a groove. He told Stephen St. John, and he's back feeling in that rhythm that he's hitting the ball good. He can feel it right off the foot. That he knew that was good and it was on target once he kicked it. All of his kicks, all 5 of them, he was 5 for 5 in the game, and he's hasn't missed a kick in the postseason. So that's been good. But you're going back to a place to where when he's saying, well, I had to learn how to kick with this injury. Well, where'd you get injured? Well, where we're going to be playing the Super Bowl. So they also didn't have a week to practice in Arizona on that turf, where they will have that next week. That they'll be there around there and practicing.
Arizona State.
But you can go over there for walkthroughs, and I think they could probably open it up for Butker to go and kick on it, right? I mean,
I don't know.
It's ridiculous.
All the practice I've ever seen is at an outside location.
Interesting.
Now maybe he can, and we don't see it. That's a possibility.
But what if he's over there for the sound check for the national anthem? Could he tell everybody how long it's going to be? Maybe that's why it's like you can't be over there. They're going to do a sound check of national anthem, and you can't tell if it's 204 or 205 or 206.
Now you're making sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about gambling, which is why the NFL is rigged to help out Vegas.
It all goes back to Vegas.
It all comes back to Vegas, which is where the Pro Bowl is going to be played to injure Derek Carr to create the next level storyline of the drama with the Vegas Raiders having to pay $40 million for a quarterback they don't even have on their roster anymore.
What would be the easiest injury to fake and then, lead to the payout? Because you can't just drop a book on your toe off the field. That's a non-football injury, right?
Shin splints, you probably can't.
Shin splint. Is that a severe enough injury?
Is it like a season-ending one to where, if you're injured
That's
that
the
bad?
thing, right? Yeah, and at that point,
Or are you injured when you get cut? Then they owe you the $40 million. I don't know.
I would be injured if I got cut.
Well, it depends on how deep the laceration is. Is it emotional cut or is it a literal cut? Because some of those, the first cut is the deepest.
does it make you sick seeing how happy he gets when he does stuff like that, Nick?
That one. I don't know why.
Honestly, with all the stuff I have to do these next couple weeks,
I don't even care.
This segment might be the best part of my life.
Let's hear Jerome Tang last
after
night
the Super Bowl.
After the KU win. We talked a lot about KU, what they did, and also after Myron Medcalf talking about the evolution of Bill Self to go from 7 foot 270 Azubuike a few years ago to then the last few years playing 4 out, 1 in positionless basketball, but even the 4 out, 1 in is 6'7" KJ Adams. You don't have a 7-footer or even McCormick. But during the game, Jerome Tang picked up a technical when K-State was down 3, and he was asked if he was wanting to get teed up in that situation.
Well, I didn't want to get a technical. I think I didn't mind getting a technical, though. I've been in here too many times where I feel like the crowd impacts the referees, and they're human beings, okay? And this is no knock on them because we shot more free throws than they shot. We made more free throws than they did. But it's like when you shoot the free throws that matter. So I just want them to know that I did not feel like the calls were being even on both ends. Now, I think John gave me the text so that he wanted to let me know, bruh, I will kick you out this game if you keep acting like that. And so he got his point across, and I hope I got a little of my point across.
Coach over here, real quick follow-up, man. You told us before you don't swear much. Did you say a magic word to get that to you?
No, I said no, but I pumped my fists, and they don't like you having, if I had done like this and went no, then I wouldn't have got the tech, but I'm not a cross my arm no guy, so.
Are you a cross your arm no guy?
I'm not.
No. Harumph. No. But he was demonstrative and pumping, going no. And I brought up in the first hour, I'd say roughly 10 times a game, John Calipari yells no while punching at the air towards an official that called a foul or not calling a foul, punching at the air.
It's another thing, we're
10 times a
we're
game.
going to let other more established head coaches get away with more stuff.
Yeah, he can do it. I know him, but Jerome, no. This is what, game number 18 for you?
Haven't earned it, bud.
Take a step back there, bud. No, it's more than game number 18.
That was the nicest way
to
to say John Higgins is a bad ref.
Hey, you know what? There was a whole lawsuit and everything that went into it. Just calm down, everybody, with Higgins and everything there, with him being a whether good, bad, indifferent official. I heard this morning Nate said last night was his 7th game in 8 days.
Yeah, they put up his schedule, which I think it's maybe too much.
Probably, but it's probably
there's not a whole lot of prep work, right? You just
but
show up.
It's the travel to fly there, to get off the plane, then go there, then you're running for 2.5 hours or whatever, then you're on a plane, then you're going somewhere else the next day.
Those guys are making like $5 to $10 grand a game.
Oh yeah, I know. I would do the same thing. I would be working 8 games in 7 days if I could. Not 7 games in 8 days. It's just when you get to the end of that stretch, how much are you then jet lagged and things like that? But it's not, an issue to me, like the game last night. KU was the better team, and even Jerome Tang talked about it. Like there were 24 fouls for K-State, 23 fouls for
the line
KU.
more. Yep.
They shot 1 more free throw in the game. Like there were a lot of fouls, and it's a physical game. There were a lot of fouls the first time, but this was not one of those to where, I don't think Wildcat fans should feel like Cincinnati Bengals fans and feel like the college basketball is rigged. I did see a lot of people upset that Kelsey was there that weren't KU fans.
He was clapping for KU.
I mean, he's there. It's a win in Rome.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's fine.
Probably got him the tickets, front row.
Yeah, Bill Self probably got him the ticket. He went and addressed the team. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, with Kelsey going there. I mean, if he, it'd be great if he went to a K-State or, Mizzou game, perfectly fine, but it's closer, right down the road. It's a freaking huge game. No problem with it.
He just crapped on the city he played college football in, right? With all those comments.
Well, I do wonder, though. You're right about that, where Cincinnati, Jerry Springer, and I do wonder, though, what happens when Cincinnati plays in Allen Fieldhouse? He's still addressing the KU team?
Well, and I wonder,
the Bearcats are playing in Allen Fieldhouse?
He's from Cleveland, so I think if you're from Cleveland, you're dyed-in-the-wool hating Cincinnati growing up, right? So maybe
but then he spent 4 years there.
Went to college there. And
I mean, they've got an affinity maybe for Cincinnati. He still rocks now it's the Bearcats C. He still rocks that Bearcat C. But you're right. That whole Cleveland, Cincinnati, is that like Kansas City, St. Louis? I'm probably guessing it is.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it is.
And actually, I think Columbus is the biggest city in Ohio.
Shut
than the other two.
The front
True
door.
story, guys.
Is that right?
They're all C names. Columbus is the biggest of the three.
Interesting. All right, we'll take a timeout. We'll come back, wrap up the show. Coming up on the other side, hanging out with Mick Shaffer, KSHB 41 Sports Director.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
I had a buddy that said stuff wrong all the time, and it was like a daily thing.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Eagles reserve offensive lineman Josh Sills has been placed on the commissioner's exempt list, which is, look, if you're the Eagles, it's out of our hands. NFL is handling it. He's not traveling with the team, and we're here to play football, and we've got, we got the guys here that are ready to go. He hasn't played since week 5. He played 4 snaps all season. We're here to play the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs. Josh Sills, reserve offensive lineman for the Eagles, indicted on rape and kidnapping charges, placed on the commissioner's exempt list just a couple of hours after that news broke about the grand jury returning an indictment in an incident that took place in 2019, but was reported immediately. And then that county, his hometown in Ohio, that county opened up the investigation and in the last 3 years, gathering information and evidence, and then presented it to the grand jury. And they came back with the indictment, and he is now on the commissioner's exempt list. So that's one of the pieces of information that has gone on today. The Denver Broncos trade for Sean Payton. So they have traded for Sean Payton, and they have traded for Russell Wilson. In exchange for those two, they have traded away Bradley Chubb, Drew Lock, Shelby Harris, Noah Fant, a first, a second, a second, a second, and a fifth for Russell Wilson and Sean Payton, and also paying Russell Wilson the money, although the cap hit this year and next year isn't that extreme. It does jump up to like $38 million in 2024, but you also have a coach in Sean Payton that has to figure out, is the quarterback good enough? And I don't have draft picks to help supplement that. In the next 2 years, I have a combined 1 pick in the first 2 rounds in the next 2 years. Instead of 4, I've got 1 second rounder, and that's next year to figure this whole thing out. So that's good. It'll be fine.
Other than that,
It'll be fine.
It'll be fine.
You always focus on the negatives, Jason.
It'll be fine. Somebody put out this graphic. I thought it was interesting. One coach has a 630 winning percentage. Another coach has a 615 winning percentage.
This is all time?
These
their
are
careers?
2 different coaches, yep. One coach has been to 11 playoffs in 16 seasons. One coach has been to 9 playoffs in 15 seasons.
These are. We're just doing 2 coaches.
Just 2
here?
coaches.
One of them's Ryan O'Hearn, Mick.
Yep.
So the first coach you mentioned has the 630 and has been to 9 and 16.
And 9 and 15.
9 and 15. The other is 615 and has been to how many?
11 and 16.
Okay.
Coach A has a 9-8 playoff record. Coach B has an 11-10 playoff record. Coach A has been to 1 Super Bowl and won it. Coach B has been to 1 Super Bowl and won it. Coach A has been to 3 conference championship games and has a 1-2 record. And Coach B has been to 4 conference championship games and has a 1-3 record.
Peyton and McCarthy.
That's right.
Nailed it.
Sean Payton and Mike McCarthy.
And all the Cowboys fans wanted Peyton.
Yep.
They hate McCarthy.
And people are like, would you trade a first and a second for Mike McCarthy? You know, because
hell no, he's horrible. He sucks.
They both had a Super Bowl championship with a Hall of Fame quarterback. We'll see what they do without a Hall of Famer. We know what Mike McCarthy's doing without a Hall of Fame quarterback. We'll see what Sean Payton does with Russell Wilson.
Glad you didn't give me their slash lines. Man, that would have sucked.
Player A batted .235, got on base at .450, but he slugged
Sir and Petra on the program next.
.827. Player B was actually .3.